everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind. You're going to dance until your feet fall off. You're not able to stand up any longer. But we're going to have a show.
Okay, everyone, how is everyone today on this lovely, I think it's a lovely Wednesday, the 20-something of whatever month this is again, because, you know, those that know me know I have no idea what month, what day of the week, anything like that is, so hello everyone, welcome to the Metaverse Farmers. Lots of interesting things to talk about tonight. Tonight we're going to specialize in talking about building self. I'm going to give you guys some of the tips, tricks, things that I do. Trying to help you guys with some of the stuff that you guys can do as I'm, you know, squirming around in my chair trying to get comfortable because just it's a squirmy day for me today, so.
By the way, it's the 24th of March.
The 24th of March. Thank you, Gecko, and welcome. So,
I happened to have you in a window that I didn't realize had you in a window, and I heard you state the date so incredibly vaguely, and I have to come in and say something.
Well, thank you. Yes, yeah, the dates are usually fairly hard for me. Like I'm better at knowing the day of the week, but trying to figure out what the date is. Yeah.
I have a similar challenge with it, and I'm still alive, and my age is something, and I don't keep track of my age. I know what my birthday is, and anybody who cares, I can say, here, my birthday is this. How old am I? Okay, now you have your answer.
Yes, I kind of have the very similar thought, very similar mindset. It's kind of how I function. So, hey, non-fake news, thanks for the host. So I do want to do one check I didn't check. Let me go quiet for just a second. Gecko, can I just get you to do a mic check for just a second just to make sure that the Discord people are showing up?
Test, 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 test. Mic check, 1 2 1 2.
Sweet, it is absolutely working. Thank you so much. Okay, spectacular. By the way, guys, this is the first show, like live call-in show that I'm doing on prohibited.tv. So if you guys want to try, those that are following me on all the crazy places out there in the world, if you guys want to jump over to prohibited.tv, I should be right there on their main page. You can just click over, join, follow me over there. Some cool stuff is happening as that site gets built and improves and cool new stuff. So if you want to someplace different than wherever you're watching me and you want to check out some new cool place, swing over there, watch me on there. So
you have a none category though.
I have a non-category. Did I not put it? I didn't put it in the right category.
Well, the other two people are in just chatting, and your category is none.
My category is none. My category should be self-improvement. So
that sounds like a good thing. It just means that your category is not on the list anymore, or ever is on the list. It's just the things.
Gotcha. Well, self-improvement was a category earlier today.
Interesting. Thank you for giving me a new thing to look into.
I'll be fair, Gecko. I did actually just create it for myself today, just to create a new category for self-improvement. But
Oh.
but it is a category. Okay, so you guys might be wondering, what are we going to talk about tonight? What are you talking about? Self-improvement. How do you improve oneself? How do you become cool like me? Well, you're not actually going to ever become cool like me because I'm probably not that cool anyways. But there's lots of cool things you guys can do. So.
And plenty of ways to be cool without being cool the way the doc is cool. But he does have a lot of coolness. And it looks like your mic is failing again.
No, I just turned the mic off for just a second, so I had to answer a question. So.
Oh, okay.
So right now, by the way, guys, I changed up the scene. You know, we're usually watching the snow, and we're usually watching a lot of other kind of cool stuff. So today, I thought we would watch some bees hang out in dandelions. It's part of I like the idea of always having something cool, since I'm not always the most interesting person to watch on the screen, since it's just me talking, wearing a silly hat and my silly glasses. It's always fun to change that up. So what we're talking about is self-improvement. So I'm going to address some of the self-improvement things. So with the self-improvement and such that we're going to talk about, I'm going to explain to you a little bit about stuff you can do, skills that you can teach yourself. I can give you guys a connection on how to be skill building. I'm going to send you to one of my favorite sites when it comes to permaculture out there in the world, where I work with these groups, and I am also participating in the skill building. And now they've got a slightly different end goal than I do. I just think it's a good challenge to learn a bunch of skills and things of that sort, but their end goal is called SKIP. It's skills to inherit property. It's mostly designed for folks that want to bypass the college line and want to immediately jump to like the retirement aspect and try to learn the skills that they're going to need to inherit property. Because you'd be really surprised, there's a bunch of people out there in the world that if they knew that they could leave their property to someone that was going to perpetuate their ideas and their dreams forward, that they would be happy to leave their property to those people. So that's kind of that's kind of what their thing is. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to go through some of the skip. I'm going to teach you guys how to sign up. I'm also going to show you guys, like, this is how we're going to be integrating some of the stuff. You guys have heard me talk about wanting to integrate things here on the farm, as with interns or as with other people that we talk about in the Discord. And we're going to kind of make our own version of this. So there's BBs, and you're going to see PEP, and you're going to see a bunch of other stuff. So a lot of times we're just going to be, the ones that we're going to modify will just be, things that Doc thinks you should know how to do. Because there's a handful of stuff that, I don't care who you are, there's a handful of stuff that, even if you don't like doing it or you don't want to do, there's things that you should know how to do. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk a little bit about how I handle health. Because a lot of you maybe not realize, but I haven't been to a doctor in 16 years. Besides medicine I take myself, I very, very rarely take any pharmaceuticals or even any over-the-counter drugs. Most of the time I try to make my own. Or if it's really one of those crazy situations that happens once every couple years, then I will take some type of pharmaceutical or some type of aspirin or something like that, but that's not very common. We're going to talk a little bit about how I cleanse my mind. So we're going to talk a little bit about meditation, and then we're going to talk about how lately I've just been really getting into this feedback loop and trying to add devices to my life, using technology to get as much feedback about my body and as much feedback as I possibly can. So we're going to talk about things like the Muse, portable EEG. We're going to talk about Fitbits, Aurora Rings, and other other instruments that are out there to help you get feedback. I mean, it could even just be, you know, an old Wii balance board. Just tools that we have out there to help balance out and give you as much feedback as we possibly can get. So I guess the first thing we can start off with is, let me bring it up. Is, you know, first thing we can do is me make sure I'm not clicking through all the silly things like I'm doing and have everything lined up perfect. There we go. So actually I want to do it on this one. Yeah, I know, everybody out there, they're just like, you should be better at this. You're such a... You focus a lot on... I'm kind of a boomer tech. We know this. We know that I do things really slow sometimes when I should be, you know, just zipping right through them. So here is Permies.com. So I guess I should probably go back to the original page so you guys can see what the home page looks like. So here is Permies.com. This is pretty much one of my go-to sites. So this is where we go to. This is where I go to learn a lot of stuff, to talk with a bunch of people on the internets about lots of cool different ideas, and also just a cool place to learn some stuff. So it's got a variety, tons and tons of just forums, just full of awesome stuff. From how to make your own clothes to composting to some hippy dippy stuff. Some of these people are really, really in one direction, and other people are completely like kind of off-gridders. What's really cool about the homesteading and the permaculture world is that you do have a lot of people that are, it's kind of the combining of the self-reliant and kind of the dirty hippie together. And when you take politics out of the mix, it's really interesting how much they get along. So, and you know, I'll be honest, like most hippies, especially any back to lander hippies or hippies, some people think I'm kind of a hippie, but whatever. You'd be surprised how like centra, like how much in the center they really, really are. So anyways, what we're going to go is we're going to talk about PEP. So these are skills. So this PEPS actually stands for Permaculture Experience, according to Paul. Paul is the guy who started the site. Paul is the one who owns Wheaton Labs, one of the big permaculture sites there in Missoula. So we'll be converting. We take some of these ideas and the ones we modify. These are docs. Permaculture skills you should know. That's kind of where I know it. That's where it's a little different. I don't have a cool acronym. Nothing cool. You know, I can't. Mine doesn't say any cool letters like that. It's just what it is. So, and you might be wondering, well, like what kind of skills on here? So we're going to click over and we're going to, Fernando says hi, everyone. Fernando says hi. He just jumped up and meowed in my face. So we're going to jump over here and we're going to start off with, this first one is called nesting. So it says badges because, so at the very bottom of the page you earn these little badges, and the reason why there's badges kind of like in Boy Scouts and other things is because it makes it very visual. So you can scroll through quickly, you can see who earned a badge, and you can see how relevant, you know, things that they're talking about. Or if you want some advice and you know that some other people aren't around to ask for advice, you can go and look at their badge. You can say, hey, this person did some cool stuff, like maybe they will help me out, and so you can jump to them. And them having the badge means that you know, they can teach you some stuff. So we're going to zoom in a little bit so it's a little bit easier to see. And then I'll scoot the screen over. Okay. So if you see, guys, some of this stuff just seems really, really, really silly, you know, doing laundry by hand. But I do wonder how many of you out there in internet land have actually done laundry by hand. So I have, not one of my favorite things to do, but I have done laundry by hand. It's nowhere near as hard as you would think, but something that is just interesting, something that you should think about doing. And we can scroll through and, you know, washing dishes by hand, cleaning the kitchen, you know, non-fake news. I mean, you know, the thing is I bet a handful of you guys that follow me have done a variety of these things. So, but these are just things, you know, it's good practice, you know, cleaning out your windows. Plus, it's just a good way to challenge yourself and to just, you know, remind yourself that you can do things. You know, the other cool thing is you have like some of these tricks, especially if you've got an old house like I do. You've got some cool tricks on here on how to deal with the mildew buildup and how to deal with mold and such like this. So, there's lots and lots of cool stuff that you can do on here, like you know, with rods and some other cool things of that sort. So. So there's lots of cool stuff, and then, you know, down to cleaning out equipment. So this was I just happened to pick this particular one, but there is absolutely tons and tons and tons on here that you guys can go through. Now, again, you might be wondering, but how does this improve me? Like, how does this make me a better person? What it does is it builds you the confidence to be able to start off with doing a little job, and then once you get up to doing these little jobs, then that in turn leads that you can end up doing larger jobs. And then you've got the confidence because you've built the step-by-step, you've built the small step-by-step on how to do things. Then there's also some challenging ones on here. So, like, let's go over here to... Why did that happen? Weird. Okay, guys, I am going to readdress something. So I am going to end this, and I will jump right back in. 1 second, guys.
What you would do if you had the power to dream at night any dream you wanted to dream. And you would, of course, be able to alter your time sense and slip, say, 75 years of subjective time into 8 hours of sleep. You would, I suppose, start out by fulfilling all your wishes. You could design for yourself what would be the most ecstatic life. Love affairs, banquets, dancing girls, wonderful journeys, gardens, music beyond belief. And then after a couple of months of this sort of thing at 75 years a night, you would be getting a little taste for something different. And you would move over to an adventurous dimension where there were certain dangers involved and the thrill of dealing with dangers. And you could rescue princesses from dragons and go on dangerous journeys. Make wonderful explosions.
Okay. Thank you, Alan Watts, for seeing me through. So it looks like we're back. Okay, so back to where we were at. We were up there. We were looking at some skills. And so what we're looking at up there now is what we're talking about is focusing on revenue streams. So these are just some ideas. These are ways to generate revenue streams by, one of my favorites is just developing a passive revenue stream that makes you $5 a year. So it doesn't sound like a lot, but if you can do a handful of those, that can make you $5 a year, and then you focus on doing it $5 a month, and then you focus on $20 a month, and over time you have a bunch of revenue streams with a bunch of, little bit of money trickling in, and that's kind of the trick. So, and just how absolutely cool it is to just have a bunch of little tricks that will help you make money. So I get asked quite a bit here on the farm, how do you make ends meet? Like, what are some of the tricks? Can you survive just being a farmer? And I would say in modern time, it's really, really hard to just survive on being a farmer. There's a bunch of little tricks, there's a bunch of stuff that makes it so that it's not just as easy as it used to be. Now, if you're willing to give up a bunch of stuff and you can, you're not in debt and you're not planning on doing certain things that is typical in society, and, no, not passing judgment on that, just something that, then you absolutely can. But I like to live the most luxurious life as I possibly can, and I like to figure out ways to do that. And by doing that, I need to generate some additional revenue. So, of course, we have our revenue from our animals that we have here on the farm. I also go out and do a little bit of odd jobs from time to time. A lot of you guys know I also do crypto trading. But other things that we do is, figuring out ways to, maybe we have some yard sales, or Lisa will make some different types of crafts, or maybe I'll make some crafts. So a couple years ago when I grew a bunch of corn, I made a bunch of corn cob pipes. So mostly just for souvenir purposes, but we also thought that would be fun. We raise bees, and we can make projects and such with our beeswax, so candles and such like that. So the idea is trying to use a revenue stream and trying to figure out what you have and how to translate that into a way to make money, especially if you have a waste stream. So what a waste stream is something that you would typically cost you money, or something that would typically throw away. If you can, convert that over in a way to generate money and to generate revenue, that is absolutely spectacular. Anyways, and so up there on the screen is just some quick little tips and tricks on how to do that kind of stuff. So yeah, corncob pipes was really, really fun. It was a really fun project to do. And again, they don't sell for a lot. Again, it's just about nickel and diming stuff in. One thing about homesteading, and actually this is not even about homesteading, I'm just going to say life in general. One thing that you guys, everybody out there that wants to have more control over life and more control over what you do, is focus on understanding where all of your money is going. So a lot of times, and trust me, there's times that I'm really bad at this as well, but absolutely knowing where your money's going, and trying to figure out ways to make sure that it's going in the directions that you're going, and that you're not paying late fees, that you're not paying silly amounts of money in situations that there is no reason to be paying those silly large amounts of money. So late fees are a good example. Interest on credit cards. You should only be paying interest on credit cards if you absolutely must. It's just a dire means. One of the fastest ways to just get yourself into a hole and stay in that hole is to regularly put things on high interest rate credit cards. Once you have okay enough credit, you should start moving up and changing up. If you have to, let's say you live in a world where you need to use credit cards. We kind of live in a digital world right now, so that's kind of, for some of us, is all we have. Especially here in rural, I pay a lot of stuff online. Credit cards I trust, especially a handful of credit card companies I trust, and then I pay it with my debit card. That way no one can get in there and actually extract everything out of my bank account. But so I slowly build up credit. So 3 years ago my credit score was 0, and now I've built up my credit score to whatever is a good credit score. I don't even know what those are, because I only worry about the credit scores for the whole purpose of getting a credit card. But I just spend time online. I research a card. I try to find 0% interest for as long as I can, or very low percent interest for as long as I can. And when I have it written on a calendar, when that one runs out, about a month or two before that or so, I try to find another card and then switch over to using that one and get that other card paid off as quick as possible. So I say this as someone who has made lots and lots of mistakes in the past with credit cards. I know how easy it is. I know how easy it is to get high interest rate credit cards, but I'm just telling you right now, unless it's a need product, so like maybe you need glasses, maybe you get your teeth fixed, maybe you need to repair your car, try not to put things on a credit card for longer than 30 days. You know, use a credit card and then pay it off. Especially if you've got a card that you can get money back, then it is okay to put it on there and pay it off. So what I'll do right now is we have a credit card right now that gives you 5% cash back for buying certain things. And so like I'll put it on the credit card, and then it usually takes a day or so to process on the credit card, and then as soon as that day or so, I just immediately make a payment and I pay it right off. That way I get all the points that I want and I get it paid off, and it's the same as using cash. And sometimes because of certain situations that we're in, especially here in Appalachia in the middle of nowhere, I don't always have the option of doing cash. So just another little trick, another little tip. Get your family, get yourself, get you used to it. If you guys ever need help with any of this kind of stuff, you need other tips, ideas, you just need a cheerleader, you need someone to help push you forward, you can join the Discord and contact me on there. That's probably one of the easiest ways to contact me. Now, I mean, some of you know how to get my phone number, and you guys are welcome if you do know how to find my phone number. You guys are actually welcome to give me a call. You can send me an email at any time. So my email, I've redone my email because my email was getting too junky, but my email right now is doc@mavispharmacy.com. So, and again, like I said, for those that don't know how to find my phone number, if you guys really need to call me, I don't know why anybody would need to call me, but some people like to talk on the phone, and I get it. And again, I'm not telling you don't. So, I'm just going to show you guys a little trick. So, here's my website, the Mavis Institute. You got the bees. You can scroll all the way down, and in the bottom part of the page, you will find my phone number and give me a call if you ever need to. So, and also, if you're ever down here in southern West Virginia, you guys are also always welcome to swing by and visit. But the idea is like the purpose of why I do what I do is just because we need, to all be in better places in our life. So it's free, no charge. It's not a 1-900 number, Damatra. It's just getting the chance to talk to me and listen to roosters and chickens and whatever else is going on in the background. Because the one warning is you do have to put up with whatever I'm in the middle of doing. So, so it'll be loud. I might be standing in the chicken coop with a Bluetooth in, or I might be pushing a wheelbarrow. So. But anyways, you can always get on the Discord. I also jump on the Discord quite often and chat on the Discord. So, if you don't want me to know your number, because some of you don't, you can jump on the Discord. And if you've not used Discord, the voice chat on there works really, really well. But anyways, you can get on there. We can talk about ideas. I can help you figure out your plan of action. I can help you move forward. So at one particular point, me and Lisa lived on a very, very extreme fixed income. And I pretty much know about what the minimum that they can live on to survive. And then I can also teach you some tricks on like how to buy food, and especially if you've got other adults that you're willing to do some swaps and such with. So there's lots of cool tricks. I also do some mission work with different families and such down here. So I can also help you guys out with that kind of stuff. Or if you're ever going to go and you're going to travel abroad and do mission work out and about in the world, I can also direct you into some different types of paths and find you some different resources. I have tons of resources, and I'd love to share 100% of it with you, but I usually like to, instead of just throwing all the resources out there into the world and just say, pick which one you want, I kind of like to tailor it down to each individual person. And I kind of like to know individual people. It's kind of one of my favorite things to do. Like, you know, a handful of you guys that are regularly watching the show and that I regularly see you, I like talking with you guys one-on-one. I like knowing aspects of everybody's life. It's just, I like the personal aspect. That way you're not just an icon and some letters and numbers on a screen. Like, I get a voice or something like that. It's just it's adds more humanity into our conversations and things. So anyways, so yeah, we've got a fan on right there, so that plant right behind me is here. You guys want to see it? Let's see if I switch over to this one. You can really see it now rocking. It's the right behind me. You can see it moving around. It's to let you know that I'm not, it's not a fake background. See, watch, it's not fake. I can fall into the depths of the background and I gotta have cool stuff going on in rooms that I live in. I have a boring, stale room. I mean, it's not under my feet right now, but I got bunnies running under my feet. Just great times. So, oh, and by the way, again, throughout the course of tonight, anybody's welcome to jump into the Discord. We are in the lively conversation part, and you guys are welcome to jump in. Just a heads up, if you are in the lively conversation part, you will be broadcast live on Airish. We're gonna call this Airish because it's not really air. You're gonna be live on Airish, and so just keep that in mind. But again, everyone's welcome. Come and ask questions, things of that sort. Okay, let's jump over to more things. So we were talking about permies. So if you watched the first part before D-Live decided to just be dorky, we were talking a little bit about permies.com. That's that cool website that I told you. You guys can join on there and do lots of cool things if you so choose. And if you don't and just want me to share some of the cool stuff that's on there, that is fine too. So let me close that down, and I had some other windows, some other things that I wanted to bring up there. Up there as in I have 3 computers in front of my face. And so since I have 3 computers up there, it's just easier to put everything up there and have the data. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is, this is something it's fairly new. So I just recently acquired an Aurora ring. So let me show you what it looks like. So if you see the ring right here, I like my rings tight, so this one's kind of tight on my finger, so. But this is an Aurora ring. So this one just happens to be a black one, but you can see the little sensors. I guess you can't see the little sensors. Anyways, there's little sensors in there. It does for sleeping, and it does a bunch of other cool stuff, but I like it because it gives you a lot of tracking. It gives you a lot of cool tracking information and such like that. So I've been utilizing it. I've been playing around with it. So we'll talk about some of my numbers. Let me zoom in again. That's a little too far. That looks good right there. So we've got. So what it does is this breaks down some cool scores for you. So this was today, I guess. And it tells you how many calories you burn, what's your resting heart rate. I slept a little bit today. you know, breaks down that kind of stuff, shows you how long, what time you went to bed, what time you woke up, what your REM sleep was. That's the cool thing. It shows you what your resting heart rate and such is. So, and then it shows you, you know, what your the body temperature variant and your respiration. That's just some of the cool measurements just for that. There's with your activities. So it shows you how long you've been active, how long you've not been active, what goals that you've met, because I haven't quite figured out how to set the goals. I did have to charge this today, so this isn't the equivalent. I don't currently have the equivalent on this because I didn't have this charged properly. But how many calories you burn, things of that sort, which is really cool. And then the readiness, I haven't quite figured out all how this readiness works yet. So and then there's your heart rate and such like that. Wow, I got really low there. Anyways, so cool device, absolutely love it. I like it for I like it for the fact that it really gives me a bunch of numbers, and it helps keep things where I understand. So like especially with like the heart rate and the sleep and such, like if I start noticing energy feels weird or I start noticing things are not well, I can go back and look on this and I can come up with nothing. Now, some of you might say, yeah, but you know, I'm not keen on wearing a ring. That's okay. I have Fitbit data as well. So here's the Fitbit data. I usually wear a Fitbit as well. It gives me some slightly different data. So I actually don't log a lot of the other stuff, but it is cool. You can log a bunch of other stuff. And this is even just an older Fitbit. So let's see how close it was together. So this has 6,200, and I had to recharge my Fitbit today too. I charged them both at the same time. So, and this one was 6,000. So yeah, pretty much they're off by a little bit, but that makes sense because I took them off slightly at different times. But so there's, you know, it's just cool. So you might be looking at this data and you might be like, I'm not exactly sure like what all of this means and that kind of stuff. So and you know, that's cool. So some of the data might not actually be ready for you, and you might just use it later. And some of the data might be something that you absolutely, you know, love right now, and you have this. So as I find more things like other things that I have, so like I have an O2 meter, so I like to know what my oxygen, I like to know, you know, these are medical devices. I like to know what my oxygen level is. And then I also keep I also have a digital thermometer, and this digital thermometer also syncs to my phone, and so it also keeps track. If I want to check my temperature, if I start feeling weird or just start feeling hot or cold, I can just check my temperature. I just log that down, and then if I notice, I can start seeing trends, and then you can, with the trends, you might be able to catch. You might be able to catch an illness ahead of time, and then, you know, take some precautions, maybe slow down what you're doing, maybe not work so much. Maybe, you know, try to get yourself some more rest, eat better, drink more water, take more vitamin C. It's kind of all based on what your personal medical choices are. It might even just be something like you consult your doctor and you ask your doctor if that's something that's important to you. You know, to each their own. I just like as much data as possible. So now the other thing I also picked up is I picked up one of these. So this is called a Muse. So this is a portable EEG. I'll show you guys it. It's really pretty cool. So it's supposed to help with meditation, and it absolutely does. Not that I actually need that much help with meditation, but its purpose is to help you with meditation and things of that sort. I actually got it because there's some additional hacks to it that helps you deal with ADD and helps you deal with focus. So this is what the device looks like. It's just kind of like a headband. It's got these little sensors on it. So I've been playing around with this for about a week, trying to figure out like if it's bullshit, if it's cool, like how much it works. Since I actually know how to meditate, I was messing around with seeing if like how accurate it was based on my ability to be able to meditate, if the noises that it was saying, if the stuff that it was doing was real or not real. You know, I was purposely breaking meditation a handful of times, spiking what I was thinking, and you know, that kind of stuff to see what my opinion was, and it's pretty cool. It's the meditation stuff's not as useful as some of the other stuff, but I have an app on. I found a third-party app that really just breaks down the EEG numbers and really breaks down the different types of brainwaves, because this addresses five different types of brainwaves, and so that is pretty cool. I've been trying to utilize this when I feel my brain just kind of like going crazy with ADD. And using this, getting the lines, and seeing if I'm noticing what my brain waves are doing, which part of my brain is bouncing around, or to the best of my abilities, because I'm still trying to understand this tech. So it's still a little bit of a learning curve. But being able to have another device that is helping me figure out what my body is doing is really cool. So something else I've been thinking about doing, and I really don't... I'm telling you that this part is, I haven't got here yet because I don't like the idea of this, but it really does make sense for those of you that maybe don't have the same issue with needles and such that I do. But there is now home kits that you can get. You can send blood in, and they will do data analysis of yourself, or you can go to a lab and you don't even need a prescription. You just pay it out of pocket, and it's becoming a whole lot cheaper, where you just kind of get your levels, you figure out what levels that you want, and they send you back the data, and then you take that data and you analyze it yourself. And then, you know, maybe a couple times throughout the course of the year, you keep sending, you send some blood in, or you get these tests done, and then you readdress and you look at your data and things of that sort. So a lot of stuff I'm talking about is called biohacking. So it's called, you know, getting control of your body, understanding your body. Now you might be wondering, well, how does this have to do with self-improvement? Well, if your body is not functioning properly, if it's not doing what it needs to do, then you're not going to be as productive. You're not going to be, there's other things that's going to affect you more. So, you know, you're going to notice that maybe if you start watching TV, or you start watching movies, or you start watching stuff that drama starts affecting you more internally. Or if you notice that you're just really grumpy, or you don't seem like you're building the strong connections with other individuals as much, it could actually be something with your biology. So our biology is pretty amazing with the way it protects ourselves. And you know, if we're not you know, in tip-top shape, it doesn't always want to send, you know, doesn't always want to put us in situations where we have to take risks and we have to do gambling, and we run the risk of bad things happening. So that's why it's important to make sure you understand a little bit more of your biology. Now, I'm also doing things like I'm also paying attention how much water I intake, which right now I'm kind of slacking because I don't know what's going on, but I've not been as thirsty as I normally have been. So it's something I need to be addressing. So I've been purposely trying to ingest more water. I also intermittent fast. So I've been intermittent fasting now for roughly 15, 16, 20, somewhere between 15 to 20 years. So what intermittent fasting is I usually go between 10 to 14 hours between in a course of a day between a meal. So like I maybe will eat at like maybe I'll eat before I go to bed, or like what time is it now? It's 11:30. I may not eat again today, and I probably won't eat till tomorrow. I would say the soonest I'll eat tomorrow will probably be between. I don't have any heavy labor to do tomorrow, so I probably won't eat again till tomorrow, till somewhere between 2 to 5. So I'll go quite a few hours without eating. What I've learned is intermittent fasting for me, and intermittent fasting is not necessarily is good for everyone. It's a good habit to get into, but maybe not something that you do all the time. So actually, so intermittent fasting, I pretty much just falls into the category of lots of calories in food. So I do have coffee. I'm a regular coffee drinker, so I probably have a couple cups of coffee throughout the course of the day. And I actually do put butter in my coffee. So I do have a little bit of calories in the morning, but in general, I'm not really eating anything of substance. Just a little shot of some energy and some butter and things of that sort. I don't always do that either. So there are some days that I'll maybe have a cup of coffee and then go a long period of time. I used to, on a lot more of a regular basis, I used to do 5, 7, 14 day fasts. So I have since rolled back on that a little bit. I don't do that as much. I have a lot to do throughout the course of a day with the chickens and on the farm, and I love fasting. But the problem with a long-term fast like that is you have a recovery period, and you have a lack of energy. And if you're having to do some hard labor, and moving a wheelbarrow, dealing with something like that, if you have to do a hard labor, you notice that you're quite a bit weak, and it actually can lead to some harmful things. Now, if you happen to have a lifestyle where you're maybe just working in the office or you're working on a computer and you're not actually excluding a lot of physical labor, then a 3, 5, 7, 14 day fast might actually be perfect. Again, though, those are something that you shouldn't do on a regular basis. You should, maybe a 3-day fast every season, maybe a 7, 14 day fast every year. And if you're going to do a longer than a 14-day fast, then that might be something that you consider doing, every 5, every 7 years or something like that. So I've done longer than 30-day fasts. I will probably never do another longer than 30-day fast again. Not that I'm getting older, but I have different requirements now because my lifestyle is completely different than what it was when I was able to do those long fasts. I was able to be more sedentary. I was able to sleep more. I was able to not excrete so much energy. And I was mostly doing the fast for energy cleansing and to do things like that, and to see if I could. The other thing is I do make sure that I give myself probably, I would say an hour a day. I give myself time to just reflect. So sometimes I meditate, sometimes I just do quiet reflection, sometimes I go forest bathing. What forest bathing is, just walking in the woods. Sometimes I just, get some comforting music and just sit and chill out to comforting music. Now, I will also tell you, this might sound weird to some of you, but I also do the reverse of meditation. I've practiced this for a little while, and I don't talk about this much because a lot of times we have this anyways if you're around TV or if you watch the news a lot or if you pay a lot of attention to things on. But I'll do some chaos. So I will find things that are just like 15 minutes of just intense Alex Jones, really getting into it, or just some really intense, crazy, high stress action movies. Because I don't watch a lot of movies. A few minutes of an action movie where you let yourself just fall into that movie, and you get that adrenaline rush, and you get that endorphins going, and that fight or flight, and that angry and that emotional draw. I do occasionally, probably 3 to, I would say between 3 to 7 times a month. Maybe an hour or two. I'll get wrapped up into that. Right now, again, that's not something that most people have to practice, because if you follow the internets and you follow a handful of people on the internet, you can easily get wrapped up into that and focus on the chaos. So the opposite of the meditation is the chaos, and so sometimes that's good. Being here on the farm, being that most days are good, and I don't have that fight or flight that often. That's why I also practice that. I also like to practice center. Center is that balance of like, life is okay. It's not good. It's not bad. It's okay. Like, it's a good, okay day. Could be better. Could be worse. And just enjoying that, like, that mediocre meh right there in the middle is just really, really nice. Hey, Yam! So, just right there in that middle is just super, super nice. And so, thank you, Yam, so much for the lemons and the ice creams and all that stuff. Very, very much appreciate it. So, and thank you to Matra also for the ice cream. It's not free candy, guys. Not at all. It's never free candy. And it doesn't chew very well either. So anyways, so yeah, there's all of those so there's all those wonderful great things about, you know, just finding out how to balance oneself, balance one body to get yourself more in line. And you know, other thing is, and I talked a little bit about this, and the reason you hadn't seen me last week, and the reason why last week you didn't really see me online too much at all. Like, I was a little bit dancing around Discord, and I occasionally visited some other people's shows, but I had a really, really strong emotional week last week. Lots of insane things happened. So my dog for 15 years, he passed away. I lost some friends. I lost an aunt. It's just, my mind got crazy. But instead of trying to push it away, like a lot of times we push death away, a lot of times we just push away those negative feelings. One of the things that I think is important is to just embrace the sorrow, embrace how horrible we feel, because that in turn means that we can turn that around. We can turn that around, and we can then remember the great things. Like, you know, like the last couple days was really tough with my dog dying. I made the decision that he wasn't in pain, so I wasn't going to get the vet. I had the vet on speed dial, so if it did turn into a painful situation, but he was just kind of chilling out, so I wanted to let that go. So, but that in turn meant that I then had to be there, focus a lot more of my attention on being there for the last moments, making sure that, you know, as a good animal steward, I was making sure the animal was well, and then still dealing with the other stuff. I still had my everyday life to do. I still had my animals to feed. I still had all the other chores that I had to do, but then I had to give all my extra time to that. And it sounds horrible, but it made me, while I was sitting there and while we, you know, I talked to the dog and things of that sort, it got me thinking about all the great times that we spent together. And while this was sad and that kind of stuff, it reminded me of stories and situations I hadn't thought about in years. You know, had the dog for 15 years, and there's just situations that, you know, they were super excited when they happened, but I hadn't thought about them. And so that in turn brought up all those memories, and I just got to re-enjoy some of the old memories that I not thought about. And, you know, I get to think about some of them again. I get to think about some of the fond memories. And then, you know, talking with, you know, and then knowing my aunt was on her way out, again, earlier, you know, the same week, is, you know, knowing that was coming about. And so, you know, got to thinking about our last conversation that I had with her and how that great that was and things of that sort. So you know, it's just, and you know, if I tried to push those away and I tried to pretend it wasn't real, if I tried to pretend that I was feeling good or pretend all that kind of stuff, it would have cheapened the experience that I had. It also would have cheapened that whole, like, that full circle, that love that I have for the individual, for the being. So, and so I wanted to go through all those emotions. And to be fair, like I mentioned this in the other, when I did my 4-hour cleaning out the rabbit cages, I didn't stream not because I didn't want you guys to see it. I chose not to stream because I didn't know if I could be as positive and as uplifting, and I didn't feel, you guys weren't here, so you guys weren't here, so you know, so me telling you how sad I was and directing you in that, I didn't see that as benefiting my family here, my online family, my online community and such like that. So I opted that I just take a little bit of time. I would just continue, and then we would have these conversations later on, and we would go back and when I was more in a right mind, when I knew I could be positive but still have an honest conversation about what was going on. And that's why we're here today, is because I don't fear death. Like, I've never feared death. I'm not afraid of death. I just miss the energy when it's gone. So and it's, you know, it's nice to miss the energy. It's nice to tear up from time to time. It's nice to have that full gamut of emotions. It's one of the things that I say that is one of my favorite parts of being human, is the gift of being human, is the fact that we have a full gamut of emotions. You know, the sweet isn't as sweet without the sour. You know, some of your favorite memories, some of the favorite memories I have are from crazy tragic events that then got spun into these spectacular, wonderful other events that refocus things later on. So you know, and so it's just, I don't know. I don't really know how to explain it. It's just how it is. So and you know, and the thing is we're all gonna go through some really horrible loss in our lives. That's, you know, what life is about. Life is about our journey through dealing with the excitement of death. Because, you know, birth is when it starts, and birth and death are just as equally excited. We view birth as such a great, exciting thing. You know, we can all think about, you know, seeing a little kid or getting our first animal or that kind of stuff. But we selfishly also don't give the same weight to death that we should, because that is the closing of a book, the end of a chapter, but that doesn't mean bad. It just means different. We have to understand that the selfishness in us, and I have it a lot, and you know, Yam has it, and a lot of us have this selfishness of missing our pets, but the joy that path that they joined us on. I don't normally just go off and read stuff I wrote, but I did actually really like what I wrote. And I actually wrote this for my friends, because when I write things for myself, I usually don't post them publicly. But if I write things out there into the ether and I post them on the internets, I usually post them on the internets for other folks. So I will read you. I'll show you it too. I don't care. I'll show you what I wrote, and I will read you. Let me zoom in a little bit more. Let me zoom in a little bit more so I'm not showing. Okay. Why isn't this not letting me zoom over this way? Okay. So transition. So here is Mither, and this was one of my favorite pictures of him when he was a puppy. So here is what I wrote. Mither and Wilt, the Platonian cattle dog. There's so much to say, 15 years worth of memories, but the words escape me. You were my first adult pet, my first flat top buddy, and so much more. I was glad I was there in the last moments. Part of myself is gone now. A large part. A larger part than I honestly thought was going to go missing. But that's alright. One of the greatest things about life is giving away all the chunks of yourself until you can also fade away. While I have a long road ahead of me, I'm glad I got to share this portion of the journey with you. When the time is right, our story will be told. From you being a porch puppy, to 09er, to the Platonian cattle dog, I will forever search for your energy again. Find me when you can. Death well, my friend. Mementos Mori. And so you know, that was just kind of again, I wrote that a little bit more for the rest of the world and not as much for me, just because there was lots of friends and such. So no, it is interesting. I did also notice the stress levels of this bothering me a lot, because it did affect my dreams. I was seeing this pet and other pets in my dreams a lot. I was seeing friends that I had lost and family members that I lost. So it is very it's very interesting, and I want to put it in the category of not necessarily horrible. It's just different, because, you know, being able to see those other things, being able to have that experience, and being able to have this death trigger the reminder of other loved ones throughout the course of my life is actually really good. So yeah, it's just I'm really much looking forward to March being over. So it's been a crazy March. It started off with a bang. One of my close friends had a massive heart attack and died, and so then I just knew it was going to go downhill from there. So once March is over, I look forward to it. Plus, when March is over, I should be ready for my bees, and that'll distract my mind a lot too. So anyways, so what I was So anyways, I think I want to mention that, and I think it's important, because these are events, and when these kind of horrible things happen to you, these also give you opportunity to reflect upon self, and make sure that the things that you've said to your loved ones, how you've treated your pets, how you've treated yourself, that you're doing the best version of you that you can. And if you're not, don't look back and say, I'm such an asshole, I shouldn't have done this. You can say that to yourself, but the idea is learn about that and make future you, current and future you, the best version of yourself that you can move forward. Learn from the lessons that you have, and how, you know, try every day to be a little bit better than you were yesterday. You know, and of course you're gonna fall back. You're gonna make mistakes. We all do. But just know that as long as you're always trying to push forward, and you're trying to better yourself, and you're trying to be a cool version of you, well, that's awesome. So that's another thing that is just important to think about with all of the silliness going on, and with all the things going on, is going through your gamut of emotions, embracing them, understanding them, and not just pushing them away, not just locking them away. So I've since we're still talking about death a little bit, so I'll tell you something that is that's important to me. So it's actually pretty much exactly what Yam said. There's something about digging the hole myself, and I've said the same thing for loved ones, is that I wish I could have been the one dug the hole. Maybe I was a grave digger in another life, or maybe it's just like the final level of respect is just getting that hole and putting the person into the ground. But there is something there's something about getting your hands dirty, digging the hole, like finding that perfect spot and putting it there. You know, it's just, there's something raw and spectacular about it. Like one of years ago, when one of our close friends he passed away, another one of our friends happens to be the person that was in charge of the church, and this person was being buried at this church, and so he got a hold of the undertaker and got a hold of the thing and asked if he could, you know, start digging some of the hole, and they allowed him to do that. And that just and I talked to him years later on about just that, how much I respected about that, and how much like I wish I could have went up there and helped him dig that hole, just because there's such, I don't know, it's a raw, important thing. You know, it's something that we've disconnected over the years. You know, like at one particular point, you know, the coffee table in your house wasn't for coffee. It was for, you know, a dead body. It was for a loved one to be there, so that you were close, up to date. You were giving your final last moments. You were raw. You understood what the total cycle of life in a way that we don't anymore. You know, we kind of LARP around it, so we kind of pretend. We kind of pretend that you know, it's something that's not real, that it's fake, that it's something that we should, you know, push back, be ashamed of, and instead of just embrace it as part of everyday life and something like that. So. You know, and you know, Yams, they're explaining how he, you know, has these spectacular tombstones and custom engraving, and that's just, you know, each person has their own way to express their I don't want to say, yeah, their undying love. So it's so cool. It's cool when people choose to go that route. The same way, like, I knew other people that just didn't ever want. They just wanted just a little rock with just an engraving on it. And you know, there's nothing. It's cool, the different tastes that everybody has. Like, I personally don't go to funerals. The only time I'll go to a funeral is if somebody that's living asks me to come to them. So like, if someone needs me there for a support system, I will go to a funeral for someone that's living as a support system. But I'm not a big person that goes to, well, I don't go to funerals anymore for folks that have passed on, that are no longer, you know, they're just a body. And some people might think that that's, you know, heartless or mean, but that's just how I've that's how I've personally figured out how to deal with stuff I've gone through. So anyways, that kind of turned a little sad. Wasn't meant for it to turn sad. But, you know, again, sadness is part of understanding your emotions and understanding sadness and understanding who you are as a person and how you're going to react and how you're going to do things. So that's just how it's good to know yourself that well. It's good. It goes back to that feedback. It goes back to knowing how to handle every aspect of your life, how to push forward, how to get through the tough times, because we're still going to have tough times. So you know, sometimes tough times are going to be, you know, the tree fall on the, well, even better, that the wind's blowing up the shingles on your roof and you need to get out there before the storm comes through and make sure, and, you know, jerry rig those shingles down so that, you know, getify, redneck the hell out of it, and so that they don't work. Other times you might have a tree smash onto your car and you're just trying to figure out what you're doing, or a part doesn't come in and you need to get your car fixed, or, you know, you have to fix a fence because the pig's running out, or, you know, lots and lots of stress. But knowing how you're going to handle all the situations and knowing how you're going to handle some of the crazy, most insane ones. And, you know, it's not good to think about. There's a lot of horrible stuff you don't want to think about, but you know, it's good to think about all the different scenarios. So Yam, you know, a lot of people said the same thing. I just want to let everybody know, even though I was 3 stories up in that video, if I would have fallen off that roof, I would have just fallen onto another roof before I would have fell onto the ground. And so it wouldn't have been like a 3-story drop. It would have been like a 1-story drop and then a 1-story drop. And it still would have sucked, absolutely sucked, and it wouldn't have been fun. Mostly because you also guys wouldn't have been able to see it because I didn't have the camera set up right. So if I would have fell off the roof, you just would have saw me disappear off the side, and it wouldn't have been as cool and dramatic as if it was like another shot. But I've also crawled on roofs. I don't have issues with being on roofs. I've been on that roof hundreds and hundreds of times. So no, and I thank everyone who was worried about me being on the roof. It's always good. It's always better to have people worry about you and then nothing bad happens. So no, I did do some silly, I will admit there was a couple silly things I did do, but I just wanted to get it done. But you know, no worries. I did nothing silly enough that put me into any type of danger. Because the other thing is I don't like to go to the doctor and I don't like to go to the hospital. And falling off a roof would mean I probably have to go to the hospital, and that would just not be bueno. That would defeat my purpose of not going to the doctor or going to a hospital for as long as I possibly can. So, you know, I don't ski because I don't want to get hurt. So if I'm not going to do something fun and not get hurt, I shouldn't do something silly and get hurt. So that's another thing that you have to do, is you have to know your weaknesses, know your strengths, know what you can handle. Don't overstep your boundaries. It's okay to put your toes on the line. It's always good to put your toes on the line and see if that line really is a solid line, or if you need to push forward, if you need to try something adventurous, if you need to try something new, or if you're just kind of just chilling out right perfectly where you are. So another cavity. I'm sorry, Yam. Oh, by the way, let's talk a little bit about teeth, since we're talking about teeth there. I don't know if any of you guys do oil pulling, but what oil pull is, you take a spoonful of coconut oil, or a half a spoonful, or whatever you can hit, and you swish it around your mouth for 5 to 15 minutes, kind of whatever's best for you. You let that really kind of soak in, and that kind of really helps pull out stuff. And then you spit that out. Usually it's best to spit it out in the trash so you don't clog up your sink and such like that. But oil pulling is one of the best ways to deal with dental issues and to do some fixing your teeth and such like that. So you have to show us your you have to show me sometime your boots, Yam. I'm interested. So there's lots of little personal health things. So I don't know if most of you know this kind of stuff, but I don't actually use shampoo on my hair. Coconut oil is what we're talking about. Not WD-40, coconut oil. I wouldn't put WD-40 in your hair. So anyway, so I don't actually use shampoo in my hair. So I just wash my hair. I wash it really good with water. Every once in a while, I will actually dust my hair with I will actually dust my hair with diatomaceous earth, just because that's actually good for humans and such like that. It's a good way to get that. But I don't. I have not used shampoo in my hair now in 7 years, maybe longer than my dreads. So that's the thing. That's the thing. Like once I stopped using shampoo, my hair got really greasy, and then my body learned how to react to it very well. And I also wear a hat, so let's be fair. Like I'm also just a hat guy. So that now I will say, like I do occasionally. I do occasionally, like I had to the other day when I was cleaning out the bunny barn, and because I should have, for future reference, I'm going to be having to, when I do stuff in the bunny barn and clean out bunny poop and such, I have to like put my hair up in a ponytail or keep it up. But I did actually have to dip my hair into in vinegar and get it cleaned and get the dreads cleaned out really well, because it did get kind of gross when I was doing that. So no, actually anybody can go poo-less. You can go no poo in your hair. And it just takes a little bit of while, especially if you shower every day. You just got to massage your hair very well and that kind of stuff, and then just brush it out a little bit, and your body will adapt to not having to do the shampoo and things of that sort. So and yeah, so there's lots of interesting things I'm more than happy to tell you all about. For those that are interested, I would rather do it if people wants to know it more one-on-one or something like that. I can tell you all about my hygiene habits, but that doesn't really relate. Everybody's going to have different body chemistry. Everybody's going to do a bunch of different things. And so everybody's going to do something different. So it's kind of best to figure out what works the best for you, how to make sure that you feel as healthiest as possible. Make sure you also feel good. Like if you don't feel good about yourself, like if you're doing something and you don't feel good about it, then maybe it's something that you don't want to do, because having high confidence in yourself, feeling good about who you are, wanting to push forward is also a very important part of who you are. Hence the reason I wear hats. I love hats. So hats are part of my personality. They're something I really enjoy wearing. So that's why I don't care so much about what my hair looks like. Like my hair right now is a crazy mess. So part of the reason my hair is a crazy mess is I'm going to be adding in, it's a little bit longer. I've been letting my hair grow a little bit longer, because I'm actually going to be adding in a few more faux dreads. And then from the faux dreads, let the hair naturally dread out. I decided I wanted a few more on this half of my body, because I love things that are asymptomatic. So not asymptomatic, asymmetrical. Words are hard. Words are really hard. So let's see what else I had to talk about self-help and making yourself good and things of that sort. So the thing is if you really want to get out there and you want to make the world better, and you want to help make your family better, you want to make the community better, you want to fight the bad people, you want to be whatever you feel are important, you need to make sure you're in your tip-top shape first. If you are not in tip-top shape, and then the enemy will find your weakness and be able to exploit that weakness of yours. So, and being able to find that weakness and exploit that weakness is just not good, because it means that you can't be as effective, you can't be as good as what you're trying to do. So strengthen yourself. So we just talked about a bunch of different ways. There's bunches and bunches of more. Some people want the spiritual balance of life. That's vitally important for some people. Some people need to focus on diet. Some people need to focus on a bunch of other things. But once you get yourself in line, the next is to get your family in line. So your family in line, that can be from things like your immediate family, your children, your wife, your parents, your grandparents. But family can also lead to your close friends that are just always there for you, the folks that you see every day, the folks that help keep you mentally sane. Those are actually family. If someone's in your life and that person helps keep you mentally insane, if that's the person you're going to turn to when some tragic event happens, if that's the person that you're going to turn to that's going to help you with XYZ, just because you don't necessarily share blood doesn't mean that they're not family. So that is just that's part of that family core. That's the next thing. That's what most of us right now really should be working on. We should be working on rebuilding and strengthening that family circle, that family core that we have. Those folks that are going to be there for us, those folks that way, take the lessons that we do. Take the lessons that we were talking about, the ways to generate some extra revenue, the ways to, eat healthy, the ways to, meditate your mind, the ways to all the different things that we've just been talking about, and that's what you give to your family circle. And then if you're blessed enough that your family circle seems to be functioning well, then you start spreading out to the community. So I am blessed with self is tolerable. I'm pretty happy with where I am as a self. My family unit is right now really improving. There's been a few new people that are friends that were part of community that have now been moved over into part of my that part of the family. And so I've been working on trying to get them, restructure them, getting them as strong as possible. I will say one of my weaknesses, and I'm saying this as humbly as I possibly can, one of my weaknesses is I have a tough time seeing the difference between community and family. So and this is a weakness because sometimes you can't get everybody in the community to be as close-knit as the family, but I just kind of want as many people to be as successful, as profitable, as clear-minded as I possibly can. So I'll stretch some of the thing thin where I maybe should refocus on some other people, but it's just how I am. That's a weakness of mine. But that has a lot to do with I'm happy with who I am. I'm centered. I'm good. I've been blessed with life. Things usually turn out millhouse. Things are normally pretty well. I have bad days, but I just want to see, I will say, I purposely I spent today trying to black pill myself, trying to calm down some of the elatedness I've seen in the world, and trying to find ways to not have so much hope. I know that sounds silly, and the reason why I think it's important to not always have hope, because there's times that I can't relate with people, and if I can relate with a person, then we can get farther along if I can understand if I can empathize with the situation that they're in. And so right now, I think that the world is awesome. Things are getting better, things are getting super cool. So I think we're right on the cusp of some awesomeness, and we're just going through a lot of growing pains right now. We're just in that little bit of where a plant, we're just kind of in that explosion stage, or that teenage stage of technology and how awesome life's going to be. And we're just seeing a lot of bad people try to do bad things, but that's just because it's like pissing in the Cheerios. They see nice things and they want to break everybody's toys, but I don't think they can break everybody's toys, because all of our toys are pretty awesome, and we can fix them and we can make it better. So I'm really not sure. I went on some crazy tangent and I'm not sure how I got over here. So I was trying to stay here, but somewhere I'm over here in the weeds, swimming in the weeds. So So, I don't know. We're over in the weeds. No worries, the weeds are a good place to be. Lots of cool stuff so you can find in the weeds. Probably edible as well. So
much love, Doc. I just wanted to say that.
Oh, hey, Yam. Thanks. Glad to hear your voice.
So, yeah. Heard about your pet there passing. That's so really sad. I'm sorry.
Thank
You're
you.
good company.
I know you absolutely understand. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, just take all the time you need and, do the things you got to do. That I'm going to go back in the spring and really plant a lot of nice flowers and make the second one's grave like stuff last year. So
I have to look back. I look back on the situation, and I don't know if it could have went any better. He was in a comfortable, nice bed. He was in a comfortable, nice dog bed. We gave him water when he wanted water. He just hung out in the bed in the room, chilling out like he normally does, like he was sleeping. Every once in a while he'd look up, be like, "Hey guys, what's up?" Go back to sleep, and did that for about 2 days. And I went in there. I was actually on a stream at the particular moment, and I just had a weird gut feeling, so I got off the stream to go check on him, and I got to catch his last like 3 breaths. So it was perfect. I know that sounds crazy to people.
Lucky. Mine, little guy, we ended up watching somewhere else. Yeah, he ended up dying of a heart attack. Like while I wasn't there, probably I got back and he probably went within the hour. But I had to like help someone with something. And then my aunt, she was really understanding, but my dad kind of said some bad. It's like, well, you're gonna remember that or regret that the rest of your life, or there's that. I'm just like, and then I was talking to my aunt, and she's like, yeah, you might not have wanted to have been there to witness that kind of heart attack because it probably went real fast. But because it probably jumped and scared him, like it probably wouldn't have been nice to witness. Whereas the other one, he kind of like, it was like being choked and he opened his mouth and ran out of breath. And it was like, that was hard to watch when I was like actually holding him at the time back in 2011. It's like tough, but God's in control. So there's some reason that God was telling me I had to leave the house at that time.
Well, so let me just pass on to the choking one. That happens a lot with pets. What you're actually seeing is it's usually
the lungs are like flat. Yeah.
Well, it's usually already passed at that particular point, and that's just a spasm. They're not feeling that at all. It just visually looks bad.
His eyes were totally. Probably, yeah, that's maybe part of it, but like his eyes were totally awake, and it was like watching somebody be choked to death. But I mean, it was those last 3. But my mom was saying that organ shut down in stages, and like the stomach's probably the first thing to go, and various other maybe I don't know what all, but like the brain, and I mean, I've seen it happen with my great grandmother. I think I can't remember with her. It was either the heart or the brain went. I want to say it was probably the brain that shut down, but like some people, different organs go, and I'm like, ugh. You just in lieu of painting the ceiling red, it's like we don't really get to choose.
Yeah. But no, I mean the one thing though is like usually when something's dying of old age or dying of something, the body does some pretty amazing things to turn off the pain sensors. So we might be seeing spasms, body spasms, such like that, but the pain sensors are already turned off on a lot of animals and a lot of people as well. Yeah, because I know my grandfather, he went through like that last couple weeks, went through like a lot of dementia and like where he was back in the 1930s and 40s and this and that, and talking to me, and I could totally get it because I read a lot of literature and I was kind of a space cadet anyway. But what's changed? But my mom was freaking out about it because she's like, "Oh my God," and I'm like, "I'll talk to him," But yeah, I hopefully he went past. I think he went in his sleep. And my grandmother, she's pushing 96 now. She was a lot younger than him. She's like 96 now, and people are just like, how much longer is she gonna hold on? It's pretty long to be hanging around, but a lot of people make it to 100. So yep, she's lost her short-term memory, which is funny because she can remember stuff I did in the early 70s, and I don't even remember doing it. I was really little, but she can't remember what she had for breakfast. But I can't remember. I mean, let's be fair. Early senility. Right. Well, and let's also be fair. If you're gonna lose one of your memory, the short term's the one to go because then every meal's just an exciting breakfast.
Yeah. I mean, there's like you get to experience the same. I mean, not the same, but you'll do stuff and it'll be new to you.
Like,
Except
yeah,
for
cool.
unless you remember doing it a long time ago. It's kind of weird how that works out. So
Yeah, I'm hungry and breakfast. Oh, it's
yeah, if I
breakfast
can
time. Oh, it's
riding
breakfast time.
motocross, like taking enough time off. I remember doing this back in the 70s. I remember doing it in the 90s. I remember doing it in the early 2000s. But if I take enough time off,
Yeah,
I've had a lot of blows to the head too, so that probably doesn't help.
just think about that. If you were doing motocross, like every jump, like, and you could only remember doing it, back in the 70s. That time you hit that first jump again, the first time you're on your bike, every day it's the first time you're on your bike hitting a jump for the last 20 years. What a great way.
With your body has like, why is my body good at this? My brain doesn't remember shit. It's like the next trail. My girlfriend's like worried about that, but it's like funny. I'm just like, oh, all the problems you've got, and I'm like, you're not helping any. But that's some of the stuff by accident, and then having to do the things that just life requires, to go to job sites and just do whatever life requires, helping people do stuff because they have to constantly have to be moving. That's why I was like, when you moved, I'm like, you were probably like, God, and that's one reason I don't really, let's just say, even if right now I could afford it, which I can't, like, even if I could, I still, only because my neighborhood's falling apart in such a bad condition, would I be really more apt to move. But until I'm really, really, really ready, I'm not just going to pick up and move, because moving, it's a lot. Like, unless you are a complete ascetic, extreme minimalist, and you have no things whatsoever to take, and I'll take as little furniture as possible if I have to. But I've gotten some stuff over the years that is like nice furniture that I like to keep, and some other stuff and whatever. I'm like, and I know I'll hire movers for a lot of it, but I don't want to be picking up all that heavy shit.
No, I
my
get
lower
it.
back, it's like, oh my God, I got enough problems. Yeah, and uprooting kind of thing. And now in your case, you've got family resettled there, and you have your pets, you have your farm, you have your animals, and you have like a whole life there. And I think it's really great what you've built.
Well, it was
to be proud of.
Well, I mean, it was an exciting. It was a gamble. It was an exciting gamble. That's what I made 15 years ago. I mean, but it was the idea. It was an idea that I was going to be here for a longer period of time. Like I don't.
And I think that thing, like you were telling me about, like the bed and breakfast thing. That bed and breakfast sounds like it was a heck of an adventure and a lot of fun that you almost didn't expect to have.
Oh yeah, no, it was. It was a lot funner than I thought it was going to be. I mean, the one thing I have decided, like, as much as as much as I do want to have more property and be able to preserve a few new houses in the future, I have decided that Flat Top will probably always be my home base. This is probably what I'll always end up coming back to, but I might, if I decide, like, I mean, what I'd really like to do is set up a couple more, labs like I have, and have different little universities, little teaching centers around the country, so people can go to and like hang out and, find cool people that want to teach stuff, and also find old houses that I can preserve. But just like you said,
I will tell you this: if you live to be 170, I'd say, but be really careful. I'll give you just the grain of wisdom is that I've seen and heard and found over the years is that your body will, like, there's limited time, and you don't want to spread your butter too thin on your bread, so to speak.
No, I mean, I get
that right. But.
Again, I guess I should rephrase that when I say me doing a lot of this. So, I kind of just want to oversee it. Like, I want to be there and like help, like give the wisdom that I have, maybe some finances, maybe some some sweat equity into it, but also just kind of have it under the umbrella of the nonprofit, with building a board around with like-minded people, so that I'm not doing all the work, but other people are also doing it together, and kind of doing it as like a team effort. So, and anywhere, I'm not even just thinking about, like, part of my idea isn't even just thinking about, just the United States per se, but, maybe even doing crazy things in other places as well. So just to kind of learn more of a diversity, so around some cool different type of people, and also have stuff, but I have no desire to move all of my shit again. Like, I don't actually want to move all the stuff I have someplace else. That sounds absolutely horrible. Like,
I'm kind of the same way. I've moved
like,
a little bit of stuff enough just between.
Maybe it'd be cool to have some, like, this chair behind me in a new place. Maybe if I bought another place, I'd move that chair because it's a fun chair, and I can get another chair for this house, so it might be cool to move like a chair or two, or have a couple different sets of clothes places or something like that. But thinking that I need to move all the stuff I have, no, that just sounds dreadful, absolutely dreadful. Yeah. So
that's one reason I don't really move down. Like, even if I could afford it, I'm not so sure I'd want to be moving down there, because I know what would happen was my other aunt would probably jet, and I'd end up being nurse to my other aunt who's in the wheelchair, and I'm like, I want to love her. Like, that's one reason it's like a kind of a post joke that I call my girlfriend occasionally pumpkin pie, because she's too sweet she's so sweet I enjoy eating her. Bad expression, but you know what I mean. But I can't live it. But if I eat too much pumpkin pie and I eat it every day, I'm gonna get sick and die from diabetes or something else. So like you have to be careful, because like in a lot of people's cases, like, well, with when I was married before, like that wasn't an issue. There was I was almost a different person back then. But I'm just like, I've changed so much, and whatever she went through in her divorce was probably tough too. And like, I don't think she could put up with me every day either. Maybe. But it would make my personality start to change to where I'd be like, I kind of like my freedom to be able to just almost just fling shit wherever I want to, and not care about what I've got, laid out going on in the middle of fixing stuff that's maybe going to take months to do, car parts. Just like, I do my thing and she does hers. She likes her little decorating and her little hobbies, and that's great. But I'm like, I would just mess her house up, and then I'd be angry because she rents out some rooms to other people, and then like, I don't like them invading my space.
Yeah,
it's because they're strangers, and and in this case, like these days, you never know. She's doing like an Airbnb to a couple of rooms there right now, and some guy just like supposed to come in tonight, and I'm like, he's supposed to be a guy that's going to be there for a few weeks as a guy who's relocating for some work or something, and then he may rent a room later on. But I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I interviewed a bunch of people to try to rent a room one time, like a couple of years ago, and I only found one person that I thought I'd be comfortably having in here.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I think when you're younger, maybe you just get along with people better, and she may be more socially that way. But I'm like, since my divorce, I'm like, I'm not completely antisocial, but I'm a little more privacy oriented.
Well, and this is like exactly what we were, talking about: understanding self, knowing your strengths and knowing your weaknesses, and knowing what you want in life. Because if you had to worry,
what your limits are, and kind of
and if you had to worry,
like in her culture, she's used to having certain people around or something like that. So I'm not.
Well, and if you had to worry about other people in the house, then you would be more stressed. Then your energy level would go down. You wouldn't be able to focus so much on good things that you want to get out there and do into the world and help people and focus on yourself.
Yeah,
because that
exactly.
and so it's
exactly.
Yeah. And so you shouldn't ever feel
bad
about it.
She would tell me that, but when I didn't, and when I had my pet, I absolutely wasn't going to have anybody else in here, because you know how they are.
Yes.
Especially pets that are that tiny and fragile. I'm like, no way in hell. I mean, and I've been through some stuff before, so I was just like, it's different if you had a dog that had or a larger animal that had its own lots of space and room, and it wasn't territorial and it wasn't like vicious, or not that my pets were vicious or anything like that, but you have to know what your personality and your stress level can take, and your pet's personality and stress level and what they were used to. If they're the type of animal that doesn't adapt real easily to a changing person or environment or what people or whatever, you have to take that into account, unless you're just an asshole or you have some reason that you have to do it. But I'm just like, in this case, I was like, nah, I'm not doing that. I'm not subjecting him to that shit. I wouldn't want, if the shoe was on the other foot, I wouldn't want someone flinging me into that environment.
Yeah, so, no, exactly.
No, and in her case, she didn't have any pets. Like, she'd had pets long in the past, long time ago when she had a family, but by living by herself for a few years and then renting to some different rooms out to different people, she didn't have any pets. She didn't worry about somebody stepping on them or something like that. That shit.
No, it's
then occasionally people like that. I mean, they'll have guests over, and then you're dealing about a rental contract and a lease, and you got all this agreement stuff and all this paperwork. And I'm like, I did that before. It was always like one sheet. It was simple. I found a few good people back late 90s, early 2000s before I got married, and like that was that. But she has these long, 20-page contracts that are every little rule, and that's okay for a lot of people. But I'm like, that's so much to have to watch out for. Utility bills, who's running the water, was there a leak? There's stuff that a lot of times people that are renting, they won't report a problem. Some alarm's going off, or there's a fire alarm or something's going off, and they won't tell you about it until the building's burned down. Forget that. If my house has to burn down, let it burn down while I'm here. You know what I mean? Let it be my fault. You don't want to have to blame someone else for causing an issue. So that's a little paranoid of me, but I was like, I have enough problems in life. I don't need to deal with that.
Yeah, no, it's not paranoid. Again, it goes back to that knowing what you want in life and knowing how to make the best version of yourself. And for you, the best version of yourself is to not have to deal with that, because why add that extra stress? But like for your girlfriend, that worked
Right,
really well
right.
for her. So perfect balance. Great.
Yeah, I guess she can help. She can push push some of it off on me and let me share some of that stress. But I'd come back and I'd be like, oh god, the pumpkin pie is. I mean, that theory that I didn't occur to me till a long time later. But I was like, well, oh, you never wanted to live with me. I'm like, oh, I was never good enough. Didn't make enough money. Job wasn't stable. My sector isn't stable, and I've learned to adjust it with for that in my life. I couldn't really do anything else, and like she was lucky to have a sector that wasn't unstable, and she did something completely different back in like 2007, 8, 9, long before I met her, but she was really really good at it, and she was pretty high up in her field. Then she completely switched fields, but she went back to a field she was originally in the 80s and 90s or whenever, like a long time ago, and she had all her degrees and her tech certifications and all that shit. She just got a few more tech certifications and now she's worked herself into a pretty high paying job. But I'm like, the thing is with me, it's never been about how much money you could make. It's you want to have enough to feed yourself and food, clothing, and shelter. But after that, having extraneous and extra can actually become like a burden.
Oh, it can, yes.
Vagabond Steve, who was like this guy on YouTube, who was like he actually went and was homeless for many, many years. And he's like, there's a certain level of freedom in that, but it's not for everybody, obviously.
Oh yeah, I mean, not everybody could do what I do, is not have, a 9 to 5 job and work on a farm and be responsible for making sure the house is standing. And
exactly.
There's a lot of work, like people watched. I have to fix the roof. I can't just call somebody to go, fix a patch in the roof. I had to get up there and figure out a way to jerry rig it until we can put a new roof on the house. So that's different types of responsibilities,
Exactly.
different things like that. So personally, I couldn't. Being homeless wouldn't work for me.
3, 4, 5 grandchildren like my brother does, but like, say again.
I couldn't be homeless or be a digital nomad, because I like I like a home base to return to. But I can understand why some people think that kind of stuff is cool. Just not my cup of tea.
Yeah, I think in his case, part of it might have been forced onto him, and he became more of a philosopher by force, and then was able to have a personality to take and turn that into something that was more like coaching and like philosophy for people, like helping people later on. Like, so he'd make those videos, and he actually made this one video about, I think it was about when his pet passed away. He kind of had a thing, and then I wrote something back, and it kind of like you were getting that when I first kind of tuned in here. I was like, yeah, I could see what you were going through. Was like, I'm like, wow, I wouldn't. You're way braver than I am. But yeah, when I that happened, it was like, I wouldn't say I locked up and turned off the world. I still dragged myself to work and did the best I could. Although the one time when one passed, like they let me go for a while or a few months, or I don't know what happened. Like, it was a disaster. But like this one thing after another, and I'm like, well, that's great. As soon as your pet passes away, you get fired from your work, and then you can't even qualify. Like, the whole thing is just. I guess I've had some bad experiences or whatever, but I was just like, well, Murphy's Law, when it rains, it pours, kind of thing that can happen, And so, like, if you're fortunate enough that kind of crap doesn't happen, if you could just be let alone for a little few days or whatever to try to deal with the grief of the pet loss and deal with whatever, goes along with it, or a family loss. And I'm like, wow, so you literally lost a family member to a heart attack, or?
No, I lost my aunt to old age. It was my beginning of February. It was the beginning of March is where my buddy died of a heart attack. So I had three in a row. Yeah, three major deaths this month.
Wow.
So yeah, that's why I said it's been a tough month. It's been a tough month. I can't wait for it to be over.
My parents always told me things happen in threes. I caught the 2 you talked about, but I was like, oh wow, 3.
Yeah,
When that kind of crap happens, and after a while you get old enough, like where I'm like, you just gotta stop counting. But you just have to hope that stuff hangs on. And like, I'm saying, it's weird. Right at the moment, there's pieces of parts I've seen where I've literally, the last few weeks, I've literally thought about just my brains out every damn day. And other times, like today, wasn't quite as bad, although it technically kind of was close to bad. But with my boss's attitude after he got back from getting his second shot, which made him happy, terrific, congratulations. And other people's attitudes of me just letting them be what they were and not want to take any training or advice. If they want to be dumbasses, that's fine. I'm not, that's their own call. I'm like, okay, then I'm not going to waste time trying to teach you if you don't want to learn. So.
Yep.
And that's okay. If that's their choice, or if they're just being hard heads, or they want to, but if they want to ask questions and keep bugging me, and that's okay too. But this stuff happens, and then I get home, and I'm like, at least I can work from home tomorrow. My mechanic's got my one vehicle; he's going to work on it. The other one's literally spilled its guts all over the parking lot. So I'm just like, you know what? I'm happy that I'm sucking wind, that I can talk to Doc and be like, that everybody's alive, and my brother got home safe from vacation with his little granddaughter, and everybody's alive. My mom called me yesterday, and she told me that they're kind of hanging in there, and that my aunt supposedly got their first shot today. If that makes them happy and they don't die from it, terrific. Otherwise, I'm not getting. Because they don't really want to accept that I'm not getting any of it, and I haven't gotten sick, and I'm going to live forever. I didn't say that. That's kind of a Ted Nugent joke, He said, "I got news you never got to go." That's what he said. But I think he meant by the spirit. It's like my body's hanging on by a thread sometimes, and like sometimes I don't know what's going on inside. But I'm finally going to get a physical after longer than 2 years now. I finally got an appointment set up for a couple weeks from now, but. I'd been putting stuff off between that and the pandemic. You could never get an appointment for anything unless it was like, an emergency situation. So I just was putting stuff off, and then I got some dental stuff to do next few weeks and whatnot, and another gum surgery probably whenever in May. But I'm like just happy that the arms and legs for the most part are working. It's like you just have to almost thank God that you're ambulatory. I mean, you were like scrambling up on a roof last week, so. And you've had all this stuff happen in your life, and I just think, wow, I'm glad you're still here.
Well, thank you. I'm glad I'm still here as well.
We start to, because I mean, I don't think you've ever said this, and I don't know if you've ever felt it. You probably have, but it's not something you ever want to talk. It's definitely not something you ever want to talk to a family member about, unless you were really close to them and they cared, which I don't seem to have too many family members like that. But it's like, there's some times when you just don't value yourself at all, and you think my life has no meaning or significance, and part of that might be a philosophical fragment of reading too much for me in my case, but learning too many things. But at the same token, it's like, if you talk to people that have really gotten past the point of going through the cycle of and being smart at the same time, of whether it be homelessness, family loss, tragedies after tragedy after tragedy, a lot of them will tell you really that life has the meaning that you give it. And I think you've told me that before, like months ago, but you kind of have to think that way. And you can't always feel that way, and you can't always think that way, but when you go through enough stuff, you kind of have to come back to that. Like I said, coming back to like a home base.
Well, I mean, like I rarely have suicidal thoughts anymore. Rarely. But when I did when I was younger, and this was quite a few years ago, I've told a few people this, and I guess I'll say it live as well. But like the whole reason I never contemplated it any further is because I realized that I'm just like an arrogant asshole. Because one day when I was thinking about just my place in the world and how I didn't really fit in, and I was kind of sad and things of that sort. The thought that came in my head, the reason why I never contemplated any more than that is I thought to myself, if I go now, what about all the people that haven't met me yet? Like, it'll kind of suck for them. And that's kind of where I got to the point. Like,
it'll what?
It'll suck for them.
The people will what? I missed that last line.
Oh, the people that
okay.
Yeah. So like the people that I never got to meet, it'll suck for them because they didn't get to meet me.
Right.
It's like what I tell people.
So you kind of took a very positive attitude, like almost spiked, whereas you were down. I'm assuming you were down.
Oh yeah. I was sad.
Black.
Yeah, it was real dark. Yeah. Your internet must be acting up again, yeah. No, it also led to why, like, when I have a tombstone. Oh, sorry, go ahead. You're back now.
I'm probably skipping around because I just plugged in hardline because it was skipping out a little bit with the wireless.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think a lot of it might just be literally like airborne, where because of what they're doing to us, between that, the fake mass shootings, and also the garbage, which most people or a lot of people still can't seem to see through. Between that and the families worrying about vaccinations, and then I come to find out today that from a coworker that my boss is like, actually, between him and his wife, they've actually worried their daughter into needing counseling because she thinks that she's going to go see a friend and come home and bring the disease home and make her parents sick. But that thing is, I told her, I was like, I don't think she's the only child that's 9 or 10 or 12 years old that is probably feeling the same way or having parents act the same way. It's probably almost becoming like a mass hysteria hypnosis where enough people are buying it. And a lot of these people are really surprisingly educated and smart people. And it's like the rest of us are just sitting there picking up some kind of vibrations coming off of it. And all that's going through our heads between that and job stress is constant suicidal thoughts. And I'm wondering, is it coming out of the smart meters? Is it coming out of the cell phones? Because I've had a lot of it lately.
No,
and I'm pretty like comedy based, so I can kind of laugh about it, but it does get a little annoying after a while. It's like, damn.
Well, it has to do with probably a bunch of stuff. It probably has to do with the planet, the ionosphere, like Earth. But I think it's funny because I'll lead back to what we all know. I joked about calling this airborne AIDS. Way back, but I didn't realize until about a week ago I was talking with a friend how actually right I was, and not in any way related to medicine, but into the programming. I realized that this is maybe just a beta run. We've already had the alpha run, because you remember as a kid, when we first learned about AIDS, how scary it was. Or maybe you were, you're a little older than me, so maybe you at least remember a little bit of it. But this,
I remember all of it. I was a teenager.
This feels very similar to that, except for they just taken it to the next level, and it's not related to sex. Like if you go back and you look at some of the old commercials and some of the old flyers at the very beginning, it mirrors this a lot. It at least rhymes.
It really does. And that when people talk about it, like, I mean, a lot of us here have talked about it. I don't know whether I know Alex Jones didn't invent the term. I'm sure it was something that somebody thought of in the 1940s or 50s. But that thing of turning the pot up really slowly and the frog is boiling in the water, but he's not boiling at first. At first, he just thinks it's a relaxing warm bath, but before he knows it, like, he's dead. And they're just slow, but they're taking their sweet time because they've got hundreds of years plans.
Yeah, well, and again, that's why I think it's very important that we need to be focusing more on self, because regardless of if they keep on with a psychological warfare on us, or if they ever decide to go biological, or if this planet ever does something weird and changes our the things, whatever reason, it doesn't matter what bad things are happening. That's something that I think a lot of times we get too caught up on, is talking about why the bad thing's happening. And I think sometimes we need to say, okay, bad things are always going to happen. If you can control the best version of you, like you know that when you get sad or when you get those crazy thoughts, you turn to humor. And sometimes it's self-deprecating
peanut butter
humor.
And chocolate.
Yeah, or you move to your peanut butter and chocolate, or your peanut butter and everything sandwiches.
Or back in the day, I could just go give my pet a hug. Yeah.
So the thing is if the bad people are doing bad things right now, since we can't point our finger on who those bad people are, and maybe some of us think we can't do anything about it, but what we can is we can make the best version of ourselves. We can make the best version of our friends and family. We can start building very awesome functioning communities, because now if I've got your back, you've got my back. We've got each other's back. We can start spreading this information to places like Dematra, and so we've got people there. We're all kind of we're all kind of doing this together, so that we can have better versions of ourselves. Then we can start taking back things, little at a time. The same way they're slowly tricking us, we can slowly turn down the boiling water. As they're turning the boiling water up, we can slowly turn down the boiling water. Because, I don't know if many of you realize, but if you've ever been in like a hot tub, let's say you're in the middle of winter and you're sitting in a hot tub and it's just really nice just hanging out in that hot tub. And then you jump out of the hot tub and it's cold outside. You're freezing and you want to get back into that tub. But if you slowly turn down the temperature, if we slowly kind of reverse it a little at a time, and then when we ease out, you know, we're back to something normal and we have allies and things weren't so bad. You know, that's the difference. They want us to jump out and be angry and shake our fists and swing around our arms and yell and scream, and so they can point and laugh at us. They don't want us to just turn it down.
Yeah, it's this gradual.
Yeah, and so like that's kind of the goal, and you know, and it's good to be honest. It's good to have honest conversations about how we feel, about how we're angry at the bad people, how the bad people are messing with our minds. We need to be addressing on finding the data, like, you know, if you're noticing that you're having more, you know, crazy thoughts, we should be figuring out why more people are having crazy thoughts to try to figure out if there's ways that we can address that with, you know, just more fellowship, if it's something that we can change with diet, if there's something we can, you know, say, okay, this technology doesn't work, we need to put together as a community and get this technology turned off, you know.
Yeah, like they banned all that garbage, like all this 5G horse shit and Wi-Fi in schools. All that's been banned in France for years.
Mm-hmm.
They're not having it. They know it kills brain cells and all this other shit and messes up DNA and God knows what, you know. I mean, it got me to the point with tinnitus, and they said, oh, the guy that owned Texas Roadhouse died of tinnitus. I don't know if I forget if he actually killed himself, or I can't remember the story exactly. I remember pieces and parts of it. It's like, this happened a few days ago, and I'm like, boy, that tinnitus must have been really bad. But I'm like, that's what I need to get a shot and get mine worse, then I go freaking insane and kill myself.
What's really cool now when you talk about tinnitus is there's tools and there's people out there that are finding ways to use sound to reverse tinnitus, because they're finding out that tinnitus is actually just the way your brain is actually talking to your eardrum, and it's actually not damage, it's actually just your brain compensating for something else, and that you can retrain your brain to get rid of the tinnitus. And that's amazing, and they've been proving.
What are they doing? Are they giving some kind of biofeedback vibration, or what are they using?
No, it's really. I'll actually have to I'll send you a link in Discord. There is. You can go to this website and you have to have good headphones. You put on the headphones and then it runs really slowly through a tinnitus check. And then when you hear your tinnitus, you then program that in. Then they will then break down. There's two ways to do it. There's a free program and there's a paid program. The free one seems to work really well, especially if you know a little bit about technology. It then teaches you. They then explain to you how to slowly reverse your tinnitus. And again, it's not going to be reversed overnight. It's not going to be reversed in a month because it didn't form overnight. It didn't form over reverse.
No, I seriously, I could probably move somewhere between where you live and where I live and get rid of it in less than a year, just by living there and not going anywhere else. But like literally, I'm 99% sure mine is caused by the 6 smart meters that are attached pretty close to the side of my kitchen. My house is so small, like there's like 6 smart meters in there, and they are just pumping this shit out, and I can't do anything about it. Like I tried calling the power company.
Well,
I tried actually ripping them out, and that didn't go so well.
You know, the thing is you can also, one thing that you might do is just get some of those Kevlar, those space blankets, those cheap space blankets that you can usually pick up for $1 or so, and just put that between the wall and where that smart meter is, and it might slow things down a little bit.
I actually did that. That didn't work at all. But the only thing I could think, maybe I could use some kind of a copper or some kind of a net over my bed or something like that, where I could at least sleep with it, that I would block some of it out. But I don't know. I have never tried that.
Well, we'll have to talk about this in another episode.
Oh, absolutely.
But the reason is I actually know there's a way to ground your bed. So you put this grounding, and actually you have the skill set to be able to build these grounding pads. But you can build these grounding pads on your bed, and then there's other things that you can do where you can where with pretty inexpensively you can seal your room off of, so that your room becomes like a Faraday cage. And
And it's a lot of that's using special kind of paint, but I don't know if I could really repaint my whole.
Well, no, even if you can't, there's poor man tactics to that now, because some people can't do the paint and some people can't do the other stuff. There's now little tricks that they found on how to do that, so that you can. It won't be a perfect Faraday cage, but it'll do very nicely. And here's the thing: if you could reduce it by 25%, that would probably do wonders.
Probably, yep.
You know, so it's.
Yeah. Well, send me anything you have, because it's been a while since I read through some of that, and some of it, maybe some people have found some better answers or whatever. And like I said, maybe if I get desperate enough, I'd be willing to use. But the other reason this is, and I could look into the paint stuff, and I think you can use a certain type of paint and then paint over it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But one part, like towards the left side, isn't like a solid wall where it's closer to where that stuff's coming through, but there's like more of a door to a closet. So I don't know. I guess I could also paint the door and then just repaint it.
No, don't paint. You don't paint the door. You paint the inside of the closet.
Yeah, and the inside of the door. But I'd have to. The problem is I'd have to leave that door shut all the time.
No. You treat it so the wall goes. Just treat it like it's a wall. And so you'd paint the ceiling of it. You'd paint the side wall, the back wall, or the side wall. Now you don't need to paint any part of the door, because you just blocked off that closet. You just made that closet its own little part of the Faraday cage. Just keep drawing out the line.
Yeah, I guess that's the problem is the source is actually below the structure of it. So
okay, so
the way it's
So if it's below the structure, then what you would do is, if you can't paint the floor, then you would get a substance. Then you would get a substance that you can cut, like a rug, and then you would just put that down on the floor.
Yeah, I'd have to look into see if it. I mean, it's possible that maybe I could take enough stuff out of the closet to where I could pull enough of the carpet out, paint underneath of it. Possibly that might. Yeah. That I might be able to do that.
Or if you can't do, as long as you can clear the floor, if you could cut a piece of plywood and then paint the plywood and just put that plywood down as the floor.
Yeah, I couldn't do that, but
okay.
Anyway, but yeah, there's possibilities that I could look into. It would just be like a whole weekend project or something.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying it's going to be easy.
I could work on it on like weeknights or something like that. I mean, it's like, there's still other stuff I want to do, but it's like I got to get the biggest stuff done. So I was like working on one of the vehicles last weekend, and all of a sudden I looked over and it was just like, oh my god, there's so much to shoot me. It's kind of funny because I'm like, I gotta go. I've got to be able to go to work, and I got to be able to go to these job sites. And basically, my boss is nice enough to let me work from home today, or not today. He's let me work from home tomorrow. So I brought my laptop in with me, but I'm not gonna be able to get as much done as I could at the office. And then Friday will be at 2 different job sites all day long, all over the damn place, and it's gonna be kind of crazy. But it is what it is, and he's understanding, and he's had some issues and whatnot, and he's running around taking care of himself and taking care of getting whatever shots he needs to make his COVID feel better, or his COVID paranoia. But it's funny because some of the other people in the office, like some people are okay with getting it. Some people have family members that have gotten it. I've had families that have gotten like the sickness and not going to get the vaccine still. And some that haven't never gotten sick and are getting the goddamn vaccine. They're much older. And then there's some other people that are newer in the office that are like, they're not getting shit and they don't want to get anything. And I totally understand. Like, because I feel that way. I'm like, if I get the flu, I'll just get over it. My brother survived it. His wife survived it. If they can survive it, I can survive it. If I got something, it's like, what are you being afraid of?
Yeah,
and they're worried about all these new variants. Every time you turn on the radio on in the morning to wake up to go to work, you hear about some new crap they're trying to scare the shit out of everybody with.
Yeah. Well, it's like I've got to the point where I just I'll talk to my friends about. We'll talk to my friends about it, and I'll say, are you on the fence about it? Are you thinking about it? Why would you do it? Why you don't? And if I have some friends that are hesitant about it or on the fence, then I'll share the data that I have with them. But right. I've got to the point where there's no reason of extra scaring or extra giving them extra stress. If they're going to do it anyways, then right. why soil our conversation? Why sour
exactly.
things
You're
that
totally
they have?
Right. That's exactly the same conversations I've had with my mom and my aunts about it, or at least with my mom anyways. I haven't really talked to them too much about it, but I did talk to her quite a bit about it the last few weeks, on and off, because they got the first shot like about 3 weeks ago. And I was like, she said, I forget how she asked me, but the thing is, I'm like, I know you think I live on the moon. Because they've thought that I was a conspiracy theorist since like before 2001.
Since before conspiracies were theorists.
Since before the towers were knocked down by magical planes with people with box cutters on them. I mean, I was out in left field long before that shit hit the dirt in New York City. At least not with everything, but with some things. Not like after 2000, after 9/11, it was like I literally went to the outer space at that point. But oh, are you still there?
I'm still here, yes.
Oh, you just changed screens on the thing. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, that's all I did. Yep.
But yeah. So, I was like, I know you think that I'm from outer space, but I'm okay with not getting the vaccine.
You just tell him you're Major Tom, and you're fine.
Oh, I know what lyric you're talking about, but I can't think of it. Ground control, Major Tom.
Yeah.
But he has another song that's famous called Ashes to Ashes. Fun to funky. We know Major Tom's a junkie, strung out in heaven's high, hitting an all-time low. I can't remember the rest of the lyrics, but it's a funny song. I only know it because Tears for Fears remade it. I was never into Bowie at all, but
a couple songs I liked were really fun.
Oh yeah, definitely quite a few.
But yeah, no, it's just I don't know.
Tom. What was the thing where is he putting like his astronaut suit on or his pilot suit on, or what was that lyric where he's like flying into the outer space or something?
Oh man, you're making me try to remember the whole song.
Because I don't know enough of that song to like. But all I know is at the beginning they just keep on saying ground control to Major Tom.
Well, yeah, they're talking to him when he's in the spaceship before the spaceship takes off.
Right.
And then he takes off into space, and then they talk to him, and then something goes wrong, and he's pretty much, I am.
Looking back into some of that Bowie stuff, though, after like he died, was like he did some really creepy shit. And people were like, well, maybe he didn't die. Maybe he actually told God or the devil that he was ready to go take his place at the seat of we don't know what. It was just the whole thing that was after he died was like, what, really weird.
Yeah, no, lots of stuff. I mean, but on the same aspect, if you want to be a legend, the best way to go out as a legend like that is to have people keep talking about you. And so sometimes
how weird you were or something, yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes I think some of that stuff is just they spread around just so that their legend would stay stronger.
Right. Like maybe Brian Jones's whole thing was just to put Mick Jagger and Keith Richards at some other level.
Mm-hmm.
Because he really did a lot of. He didn't get much credit while the Rolling Stones were making their first Rolling Stones, I guess. But it's supposed to be funny. Wait, you know what? He's silly too. I don't even think the name that. Unlike most of us that didn't pay attention to it or weren't like really big fans, that's not even the name of the song. The name of the song is actually Space Oddity.
Yes.
Okay, ground control to Major Tom. Take your protein pills and put your helmet on. See, I knew I had something with this song. Commencing countdown, engines on, check ignition, and may God's love be with you. I don't remember that. Lift off, blah, blah, blah. You've really made the grade, and the papers want to know whose shirts you wear. Now it's time to leave the capsule if you dare.
Well, yeah, they were just they.
And then he talks back to him and says, "I'm stepping through the door, and I'm floating in a most peculiar way. The stars look very different." It's a cool song, though.
Yeah, no, I mean they get.
So is he also like making people like non-transparently question the fact that we never really went to the moon, or that it was all a big staged event?
You could look at it like that. You could look at it that it's staged, that he's an actor because they want to know what clothes he's wearing, what shirt he's wearing. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff. Like it's
yeah. Or did they actually, during the time that all that was actually going on, did they actually send Bowie to the moon?
Or
just you know what I'm talking about.
Or they're just conditioning us to just get to look.
Maybe he wrote it because he was already conditioned. just like when Mailer was talking, because Mailer wrote this great book, and I've got the original hardback right here in my library, and it's called "Of a Fire on the Moon." And I read it, and I read it back long enough to go to where I did not question the moon landing whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And that was only probably like 1997.
Okay.
But he wrote the book when it happened in 68, 69, whatever. 69, I guess it was that he wrote it, and I think it got published in 70. But I mean, he was down in Houston and was interviewing and watching all this shit go on. Like I don't know if he was in the control room or not, but like he was there. Just like he was at the Pentagon marches, just like he was at the Chicago riots in 68, the Pentagon Vietnam riots and, the protests in 68, 67, whatever. He wrote about it like right there, and he totally had everybody come. He obviously was totally, I want to say 99% of the people back then bought it, and it seemed totally real. But when you talk to some of the really, really old timers, like in World War II, I've heard, and I get a feeling my one grandfather didn't believe it, but he was too quiet to talk about it. But I get a feeling that he probably, and there probably was more people that were rurally, that came back and were rural, like came out of World War II, that either saw enough stuff or heard enough stuff, or were suspicious enough but just couldn't tell their families about it, or had to kill enough Japanese or German people or soldiers or whatever. They saw enough shit in their life. They were like, they probably just figured, this is bullshit. There's no way we're on the moon.
But look how absolutely perfect it was. And the reason I say it's perfect is, it's been 50 some years now, and we're still talking, we're still questioning them. It was a perfect event then, because 50 years later, we're still questioning it, we're still talking about it, we're still debating it. That is exactly, no truth was told, nothing productive's actually happening when we talk about questioning it or anything like that. Instead of talking, and I think it's important that we also recognize it and that we talk about that too, because
it's a stepping stone. It's a moon rock.
Yeah, it's just it's really interesting, and it's a cool legacy that those particular people playing that particular part of the game of life was able to put in. Like 9/11 will always be a stepping stone. The craziness of 2020 will always be a stepping stone. Like we can look back. Something that I've been watching lately. It's a really interesting documentary. I haven't finished it all yet, but you might actually like it. And if you don't, I don't remember what it's streaming on. And sometime if you can't watch it, we'll get together and I'll stream it on here on Discord so you can watch it. But it's called Kids 90s. It's Selena Moonfry, the one that was Punky Brewster. It's her tapes of what it was like to grow up as a child star in the 90s. It's really interesting.
My sister used to watch her show all the time. I remember that show. I was like a teenager, I think, when that came out.
So it's a really fun. It's actually so far a really good documentary. It's very raw, and I kind of like it. So it might be something worth watching. The Macho's out fishing for squid and listening to us. No, he's right. That's how awesome the world is, that you could be out fishing.
That is wild.
I mean, that's why I say, like, things are pretty awesome. I got a pair of $40 glow-in-the-dark glasses.
Ground control to kangaroo beats.
As a kid, I would have loved glow-in-the-dark glasses, and now I can get them on the internets for cheap. It's so cool. Like, that's the one thing. Like when I mentioned earlier, it's just the one thing that we have to get used to is how we haven't quite accepted how cool the world is yet. Hence the reason why we've got, people on all sides complaining and upset. Like, if there's ever a time to be alive with having access to the coolness that existed, like right now is pretty awesome. If we just wiped away the silly people that just want to complain about all the silly stuff, then, life would be pretty cool. If we focused on, instead of complaining and saying these people need reparations or saying these people need this, that, the other, if we just made sure everybody had full bellies, then, How great would it be? No more hungry people in the world, and we just focus on that. Awesome.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that I think that, like you talked about, thing about the moon and all this stuff is that it's got people thinking and talking and stepping stones, and then you think about the song by Sex Pistols called I'm Not Just Stepping Stone. It's a pretty cool song. When you think about like that, what did he mean by that? I honestly don't know. Like, I could take it for a lot of good guesses, but applying it to the stuff we just talked about is that if you're learning things as a stepping stone to get to a point where you can be a no-shaper and you can be a who gives a fuck, kind of like, okay, what it was a psyop, it was something to unite, it was something that Kennedy pulled off to make the Russians feel second best, to make Americans feel better. It's a self-running script. It's same old shit. It's Trouble in the Suez yesterday, and but it was in the Billy Joel song, but it was describing something that happened probably back in the 60s. I don't even know. I didn't trace back the year. But if you look at that, like, whole thread of repetitive crap that everybody's just under this generational mind control, and the CIA is laughing its ass off, and there's these dirtbags that are Masons that just want to control everything, and then you got, like, you know, who is it, Mock saying that he's got the proof that they're not all bad, which is probably true. You know, I mean, there's a lot of people that are in that position that are trying to help people save themselves by doing better, whether it be in the stock market, Bitcoin, health-wise, anything. And they don't have to be in that particular religion or background or whatever. So we try to help each other just, you know, cope with reality, you know, and the stuff that doesn't even make any sense, like, how does cell theory work, and how does any of the virus theory work if we all just die? Because theoretically, the way cells are mapped out by science, we're supposed to live forever, but there's decay. So, like, to be a doctor and have some kind of, like, really great, you know, education at a microbiological level has to be something that would cause borderline schizophrenia in someone that could take it to the logical extent. I don't know if that even makes any sense, but I was reading something about it. I probably didn't read enough about it. But it's like, you know, if any of that stuff's true, but then it makes you think, okay, you basically really just have to accept what is and what's handed to you, and try not to let it get you so down that you just hate your life, hate yourself, and, like, don't even want to live anymore, and try to treat others well. That's like as good as it gets, and put up with all the people that are going to be permanent assholes and make everybody else's lives miserable, when there's a lot of people that just choose to do that shit. And we have to choose not to, like, lower ourselves to their level, or just be smart enough to push them away and ignore them and tell them, you know, basically either to go to hell, but, like.
Or what about this? What if somebody else can't actually affect your reality? Because it's yours. Just like I tell people, this is my reality and you're just a guest. Like,
yeah, just like that's almost the tack I had to take with my mom and dad, was because I saw that, like, he's abused her to the point where she's actually, like, normalized to it, and I can't change. And I tried 20 years ago, because I tested it already 20 years ago. I tried to get her to do something about it, to move away or do whatever. And she wouldn't. She was, and I love her, and she made her choices, and she told me about it again even a year ago. We kind of had a similar conversation again, but at a different level, a different kind of slightly different take, but it's pretty much the same subject type stuff. And I was like, you know what? All I can do is just accept whatever and just love her for, and try to be here for her and let her know that I'm here for her. And if, you know, and try to, you know, help the best I can, but I can't, like, if she doesn't want to do the better thing for her own health or whatever, I can't force her to.
Now, one of the hardest things to be human, that's about being human, is the fact that we can't change another person. We can only guide them down paths that they're willing to walk with us. But if we're pulling them down the paths, if someone's not wanting to learn, if someone's not wanting to be helped, then all we're doing is wasting our time, because there's other people we could be helping. There's other situations that we could be doing stuff with.
Exactly. And we found that out with ourselves all the time. But for certain things, and some of us are very immediately know we need help and are willing to find it, seek it out, get the help, whether it be counseling or whatever the case, or a health situation or just whatever. And sometimes we don't. And we put up with various physical pain that doesn't seem to want to go away. But, you know, maybe we'll ask our doctors about it, maybe we won't. God damn it. Anyway, so
No, I mean, I
it's
I
like
agree.
some stuff that's
I
just
should
like
be building
part
up.
of aging and like but you're right though, because you don't want to, because if the person isn't willing to admit they have a problem, then maybe it's not a problem for them, and maybe it just looks like a problem to everybody else, and they've got their person. Now, let's see. Whoa, what happened?
No, just Gecko dropped out.
Oh, I thought it was like a
That was
loud clickers.
Yeah, no. So
Okay.
yeah,
But
no.
yeah, I know I was
You're right.
rambling, but I mean, I'm sure there's lots of people that think we have problems. They'd want to lead us down a certain, or to help us fix something or do whatever. I'm absolutely positive of it. I know, like, my girlfriend gets me enough of that crap, and it actually is weird, because when she does that, it actually makes me want to make my problems worse. Like, I actually want to then not give a shit and make more of a mess and care less and do a worse job.
And so you have to keep
or
that
or
in
not.
mind.
It's weird, because I have that rebellious reaction sometimes, and I'm like, oh god.
Well, and you have to keep that in mind, because what that also means is some of the times that you're trying to help other people, and if they're not ready to be helped, maybe they won't have the same they have the same reaction and things of that sort. And that's where it's really interesting. And it's really hard. That's why.
And some people that are of, I think you know what I'm talking about, but there's some people that then you help them because they've asked you to help them, and you do all this extra stuff, and you go out of your way and break your back, and they actually appreciate you less and treat you more like shit because they have a mental problem or emotional problems or both or whatever. But like, there's some people that are just like that, and then you get burned by that, and then you kind of have a withdrawal thing, and you're like, oh my god. So it's basically like, it's almost like everybody's just surrounded by various types of landmines, and we're all just stepping on them and learning to not get the rest of our limbs blown off. I'm really making a metaphor out of it, but yeah, it's a hell of a learning process. And some of us, I mean, I know even myself, a lot of it I don't really learn, or I just want to forgive and forget, and I really shouldn't. I'm paying the price for some of that, but
the one thing though is I like the idea though is that if we blaze the right trail, then we can look back and see, yes, quite a few landmines went off and quite a few stuff was damaged, but we are still here, we're still moving forward, and the world's getting better.
Yeah, that would be.
I mean, the thing is,
nice.
If you're
at least we can't like fault ourselves for not trying,
Well, if you're a good person, if you feel you're a good person and you're doing the best that you feel that you can do, and that's all that matters, then you are making the world better. The end. Like, there is no if and ways around it. So somebody else might disagree with you, but it doesn't, like, you are trying to do the best version of, if you are actively trying to be the best version of yourself, you're actively trying to push the best foot forward, then you are making the world better. You just have to sometimes realize that by making the world a little bit better, someone else's world might get a little shitty for a while, but the rest of the people that you will never meet in your life will hear it, see it, experience it, observe it, just by picking up, I mentioned this before, like, if you see a runaway shopping cart and you grab that runaway shopping cart before it smashes into a car, okay, and maybe scratches that car. It doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but there could be a little kid watching that. And that little kid remembers that story, so something else happens in life. Like, they maybe see their sister getting ready to fall down the steps, and so they grab their little sister because they saw you grab that shopping cart, and they thought that in turn was the memory that triggered them to grab something. Could be something, and you will never actually know that.
Enough of them. You're totally right. And a person, like even as we are here as adults, if we witness enough of that type of what I would either call right action or helpful or heroic or whatever, if you see enough of that, or if you have someone that repeats a certain thing, whether it be a noise or has a certain physical ailment or something, at certain ages in our lives, even sometimes as we get a bit older, surprisingly, even like sometimes in our 30s or 40s, when we think we've fully grown, and we are, but sometimes you'll pick up those either habits or tics or just whatever, or you'll copy something just because it sounds funny or because it seems interesting or whatever, or because that person you looked up to or whatever the case. But like, that's the case with, so that's why, like, I try not to, it's like with my nephew and niece, I try to like be a good person and talk to them and try not to like be too intrusive and let them develop in their own way and develop their own talents and encourage the positive talents without putting any pressure on them. Because I think I mentioned one thing to one of my aunts about one of them, and she kind of, you could see that she was starting to have that like motherly pressure attitude towards it, which wasn't necessarily bad, but it was like, the thing is, a lot of times people don't realize that a lot of times the too much encouragement can actually put pressure on a person, and not everybody's cut out for that. And at certain ages, children might be more susceptible to pressure being a negative thing. So you have to be really careful, or you end up with like these stressed out Olympic kids that are in the Olympics that end up committing suicide when they're 21, or having bad things happen to them, or deciding they're going to take drugs to get over some kind of, because they didn't have a childhood, because they were robbed of a childhood. You don't really want that. But a lot of people think, let's force the shit out of the kids to develop some kind of talent that they seem to have.
You just kind of do the best that you can.
Yeah, you feel your way through it, but you know what I'm talking about is the I don't know what I'd call them, but I'd call them was like the pre-Dr. Spock types.
Okay. Yep.
Or maybe it was Dr. Spock. It was one or the other, but like, there's, what I'm talking about is like the kids that are forced. It's like the tiger mom stuff. You see a lot more of it in Asian families, where the kids just come out and they're either like overachievers or it's all they can do to cope, and then they feel like, you have to achieve all this stuff, and then you have to have a family with kids. Dude, you don't have to do shit except food, clothing, shelter, and maybe taxes. And some people don't even do that. And there's a lot of people that are really lazy. But as I say that, I'm playing a little bit of devil's advocate, but not really. But there's some people that are just, they've gotten to the point where, you hear them having a conversation, and you're like, my God, how did they ever get past 18? Without just succumbing to a nervous breakdown.
Yeah, but
because the parents just want to shove everything down their throats.
But the other thing I like to point out is, like we were just talking about, is that it even could be some kid could have a horrible life, and one positive event could change them and turn that all around.
Absolutely.
And those are just things that we just need to. We just always need to be aware of, and we need to think about, and we need to, like I said, just try to be the best version of yourself that you can be, and when you're not the best version of yourself, accept that. Don't punish yourself for not being the best version. Just recognize that, you made a mistake.
Yeah, and that's okay. The thing is that, to err is human. We all make mistakes, and yes, Paul McCartney's really alive. Sorry, he's alive. And you guys are all being lied to. Because the thing is, they've taken it too far now. And people are like, man, these people will fucking believe we didn't go to the moon, and we probably didn't, but we can make all this other shit up now. And I'm like, I talked to my aunt about it, and she was alive back then. Like, she's old. And she's like, yeah, people didn't get British humor, apparently. Even back then, they thought, oh, yeah, Paul McCartney got killed. Bullshit. That was a joke. That was the whole joke in the album. That's why they made that. The people didn't, and I still, honestly, because even as I got much older, a lot of British humor I didn't understand. And Mark could explain to us, and we'd still be like, "What the fuck is he talking about?" Mm-hmm. We just don't get it. But the Beatles had that thing, and it was like, "Oh man, it's Billy Shears." No, it's not.
Well, I mean, but that adds to the fun. That adds to the fun of why people like to talk about stuff. It's good to have entertainment. It's good to have knowing what's happening out in the outside world and having a good laugh and such like that. It's just we kind of, as a society, started taking things way too seriously. We started getting we focused more on the angry things and less
exactly. Yep.
And again, I actually feel sorry. It's one of those things, like, a lot of times we'll see these people, the cancel culture, and I have got to the point where I've just decided that I actually just feel sad for them. And I'm not even angry because,
you know what I mean?
Because, like, if you're that far left, there's no fun left. There's nothing. I don't see anything that can be fun. I've had conversations with them, and I'm like, but what about fun?
Yeah, it's just like every single thing, every single noise that Mock would make would just trigger the living shit out of your sister and boyfriend. And I'd be like, how the fuck is that enjoyable at all? They have literally taken the download, and they've got every blue pill, whatever. I mean, like, I don't know. It's sad because you see them struggling, and like they want to wake up, and maybe they see pieces and parts of things, but and I guess it's taken a while for us to wake up too. But like for us, it was so long ago, and it was like, you know, for a lot of us, is
But
somewhere
then again,
between the Mayan calendar and seeing the towers come down. We were like, "There's some horse shit in the wind." You know, if someone of us didn't wake up a little bit.
but then again, some people, like I said, it's my reality, and you're just a guest, and some people that's the world that they want to build.
Yeah,
And
and there was one of those guys came up with that kind of reality bubbles theory, is that we really, you can't affect.
And I guess it's going back to, it's great for the people that choose to listen, that want to help, and that want to listen, that want to learn. Then we talk to them, and it's best to, to talk about lighter conversations. One of the things that, I remember as a kid, there's things you didn't used to talk about. You didn't talk about relationships, you didn't talk about religion, and you didn't talk about politics. It kind of seems like that's all we talk about anymore in the world.
Yeah, it's like our truth movement has gotten usurped, overridden.
Oh, I wouldn't even say the truth movement. I would just
not
say
all of it. But
everywhere.
Like, not movement. No, you're totally right.
Look at
like
reality TV.
Invasive.
Yeah,
Reality is taking over that whole like kind of like it's got like its own overlay or multiple overlays where people are trapped at different levels or. What's that?
Gecko returned.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you must have different. You must have different. Must have different sounds on because as he was coming and going, that's what you probably heard.
Yeah, it's just like a little computer noise.
Oh, okay.
But he's muted, so I guess he's not talking.
Not at the moment.
I don't think I've ever talked to him before. Oh.
I just decided I was gonna not have delay when I was listening. So.
Oh, okay.
Hopefully he's not offended at any of the British things I said.
No, probably not.
Ground control to. You're from USA also?
Yes, I am.
I can't tell where from.
Not from around. He's from away.
Oh, all I have to do is start relaxing into some sort of speech, and it'll probably be pretty particular where I'm from.
Rochester?
That's an interesting guess, because Doc knows where I'm from. Doc knows more specifically than many people where I am.
It's not Minnesota,
and
sure.
Not Minnesota.
He's been drinking that Baltimore water. That's a Tooch joke. Sorry. I
can issue a two-word greeting, and it would be very clear where I am. Greetings, y'all.
The South?
Just a bit.
I was gonna say, I mean, we say that here too, but I'm kind of south of the Mason-Dixon line, so. But we don't say greet. I don't think we say greetings. We just say. Well, that's.
It would be more. It would be.
Y'all come back here or something like that.
And it would be more. It would be more regionally specific to say howdy, y'all.
Texas. We used to watch a lot of Dukes of Hazzard as kids, so we felt like we grew up in Georgia, but in reality, much further north. People never understood that too, so I always troll my black friends with it that are from the indoctrinated series of universities along the East Coast, and they don't take too kindly to it. But my friends from Africa all understand. It's a shit show, but yeah, I have a lot of fun with that because me and my friends from Africa, we can all use the N-word freely and think it's funny, but use it in the proper way, not in the nasty way. But I would never say that to my friends that were indoctrinated at the colleges. They'd be like, "What, man? I'm going to tear your flag down, man. I'll burn you up." They hate us, man. They've been top. I'm like, dude, that's just the way history was written, right? Those battles are real, and they didn't really enjoy lynching people, and that's a little bit like a story. And
well, again,
the ones that did were evil people. There was a lot of evil people, so. They didn't know they were racists.
It's just falling into that category as that because, because so few people have had the ability to focus on self and community, those stories get to propagate, and the positive lore of the stories and the negative lore of the stories propagates out there, and then just like a game of telephone, and we keep retelling the story and retelling the story, and we tell a version through different people's eyes and such like that until the story is just so lost. It's really interesting. I heard somebody mention that history is not written by the victor; it's written by the historian.
Right.
And the reason why that's important is it kind of depends on how the historian knows the story, how it's written. So it could even be the historian could have it completely wrong because they weren't even involved in the situation. They are like the furthest from the line of.
They've analyzed the various diaries of the guys that were in those battles, and they're trying to interpret it all and make it historically accurate.
But
you mean
by,
history, you mean battles or dates, or you mean something else?
I'm just saying everything about history. The people that are the historian, the historians
these
are
guys
trying
now
to,
that they don't seem to understand how anything was built, and they think that it was all just by magic, and that we were all just plopped here, and aliens built all these complicated structures. And I'm like, no, you guys just don't know shit about construction. Apparently, it's really sad.
It reminds me of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy in 42. It's like and Marvin being able to see. Well, there's a question that fits the answer. That must be what it means. And I'm like, and I'm like, no, the way things are the way things are, and the way we interpret things are the way we interpret things, and if we're lucky, they coincide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they've got this thing now with supposedly all these different cathedrals, and they've gone through, and I'm like, here's the problem: it's that you didn't spend decades studying them like a lot of us, and you didn't take very much higher level college courses and things
Well, but hold on. But
I was about to say the wrong word, but
let's be
I don't
fair.
know why I was going to say
But let's be.
I'm so tired. But archaeology, if you really, really study and you do that for a lifetime, you really gain a deep understanding of how all this stuff happened. But people these days are so uneducated, or they have their business degrees, or they're summa cum laude from Penn State or something, and they don't understand how any of this stuff happened. And they're like, "Oh, it must have been done by aliens. It must have been from a mud flood."
But hold on, but let's roll this back though. It is magic, like the cathedral being built.
To them, it's magic.
No, but again, we're talking about reality.
How could this exist then?
It's Clarkian magic, and anything that I don't understand how it happened was done magically. Intrinsically, because I can't distinguish the technology from the magic.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly. That's what I was saying. It's that kind of magic, and
it's the kind of people that run to the internet for the answers instead of really diving into libraries and taking courses and understanding and going out and doing things and actually learning from people that are in that field, and really, really getting out there and researching the old books that are not available in many libraries anymore, unfortunately.
Well, no, but I mean. But what's also crazy is some of the information is lost. One of the things I like to point out is rarely we have, throughout the world we have beautiful Victorian technology, beautiful Victorian architecture. We have, Roman architecture. We have, even craftsman type architecture. But if you go and you look at modern American built structures, they're just boring and cheap and so you go to an architect.
It wasn't always like that though.
Well, I know, but I mean, you go to someone in their 20s today that's lived in an allotment where all the houses look the same and they're all cheaply built and things of that sort, and then
so they're environmentally at a real low level already,
and then you take them and you show them a castle or a Victorian house. And to
Right.
them, it's like, how did these architects figure out how to do that? That's magic. Like, that's insane.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
because they're
I
just
think
like,
that's what it is. I think
Yeah.
that's really a lot of it is, because a lot of people try to explain it to them with like even stuff that I wouldn't necessarily explain it with, but I'm just like, I know what they're talking about as soon as they start talking about it. Is
Well-
I remember more like historically, like who actually, and some of these cathedrals took hundreds and hundreds of years to build. They were started by grandfathers and finished by grandsons, or great grandfathers and finished by
I know, but
grandsons.
think
It was
about
like
this.
they just don't understand how long a lot of that construction actually took. It was
but-
done by it was designed by these guys that were just really like Galileo type guys.
Well,
They're really
I think
genius
they
type people.
also don't understand it because they didn't have the technology to build the stuff the way we build today, and it should be easier to build all of those great, like, every house should look like a magical Victorian house if that's something that you wanted it
Back
to look
then,
like.
they had people back then that spent an entire lifetime just building the first level of a lot of those Gothic cathedrals.
Okay, but I guess what I'm trying to point out is we have the technology to build. We have the tools and computers and power saws and electric and stuff.
They don't understand it because they haven't studied the economy. So you have to study economics.
No,
You have
but
to
hold on,
study
no,
like
let
how
me-
all that stuff interacts.
Let me continue with what I was trying to say, though, is in their mind, they're seeing that we have all of this technology and we should be building these beautiful structures today because we can do it easier than the ancestors did, but we're not, and so they're confused. And so they're just like, and so to them, they don't understand why these architects that are that they believe are smarter than they are. Well, why aren't they building giant Victorian beautiful houses? And so part of them are also, they're getting tricked because, well, on the same aspect, why aren't we building these? We could be building these awesome structures pretty easily, but we're choosing not to because of.
No. We're not choosing anything. We live in clown world, where everything has to be paid for by dollars and cents, and somebody has to have the money for it. And Bill Gates isn't pissing his money. Bill Gates, those mega rich people are not spending money on that. Oh, they're donating money. My boss claims that he's donated all this money. I'm like, well, then why aren't there just hospitals coming out of the ground curing cancer and everything else? Because you've been fucking lied to. That's why. You're more likely to learn stuff from a dead black guy that wrote stuff from 1960 to 1985 and bitched about it. Talking about James Baldwin in particular, you're more likely to learn more from him than you are from anything you've seen on TV or the internet in the last 20 years. You just are. But you wouldn't know that unless you read his entire library. And you'd have to do the research.
I can sum up why we're not even to those people that are confused with three letters, and it makes total sense. ROI. All the stuff built now is
yes.
we need to get what we're getting at, and these big wonderful things that we can build. Nobody can see a point in a return from it. I mean, part of the reason things were built so grand back then is it was a measuring contest. Whoever could build the best thing and live in the best house was the guy that you bowed to.
And you wanted to brag about being able to give it to your grandchildren.
Yes.
My grandchildren are going to live in that house.
I mean, and that makes a lot of sense because not only do these rubber stamp tenements that the people you're talking about live in, not only do they not have the ownership stake in the place, but it's not of the quality they want to give it to their posterity.
Well, so I was doing some research on housing in America and such like that, and did you know that the average age of the house in the United States is 30 years old?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's median means it. Statistics.
That's insane. And
that's insanely young.
Well, that's telling me that we deleted a lot of houses off in the United States if the average house is 30 years old.
It follows a population curve. So if you go to Iowa, you'll find, lower population, slower moving economy, the entire 9 yards, you'll find a lot more 100 and
Oh, yeah.
150-year-old houses there. Statistically, density-wise, but East and West Coast, there's so much stuff that's been done in the last 30 years because the population's gone, from 50 million to like 300 million or more. That percentage-wise, that year, it's basically, it's like a graph that moves up, and all that area under that curve that's built up recently, that's
It's
average year. So your median jumps back down to like a lower year number.
well, they've also found how to ride the ROI curve. They're like,
Yes.
beyond a certain amount, it doesn't make sense to keep even though homes tend to appreciate rather than depreciate, the maintenance cost keeps creeping up, and you're probably better aware of it than many people, Doc. That there's that maintaining an older home is more problematic and takes more than most people want to put into it, and so they figured out how to keep perpetuating this curve and also keep a rolling housing market, so that there's always new homes being built. So you've got blue collar labor. You've also got.
You're totally right. And not only that, every generation, people get more spoiled and more lazy. Generally, now not the Amish, maybe not you, me, and Doc, but a lot of people. Look around. You're like, man, everybody. If you can't stick it in the microwave and get it to eat right away, or get it driving through McDonald's fast food line, they don't want to have it. So it's like, you get a lazy population that's like bordering on 8 billion people that believe that everything was just, should be handed to them and don't want to work for it. The Doc, probably really takes care of his house, as best he can, and doesn't worry about how much time it takes to fix something.
Well, I'm going to cover two other things about the whole why it's 30 years. You guys are both absolutely correct. But one of the other reasons is the average American moves every 11 years, which blows my mind. But they also say a wood-built house. If a house is built from wood, it will normally only be if it is not maintained for longer than 5 years, then that's when it reaches the threshold of it's cheaper to tear it down and start fresh than to repair a 5-year-old neglected house, a house that's been neglected for 5 years, if it's made of wood.
And now you just strengthened my resolve to build a masonry frame house.
Oh yeah. Well, you can build a wood house. You can absolutely build a wood house if you've built.
But you have to maintain it.
You have to build it right the first time, and you have to do the proper maintenance for how that house was built. So one of the biggest things that people want to make I've had to argue with a lot of people. So my house has a wood frame. My house is a wood house. It's got wood siding. So I've had people say you should just put up some vinyl siding or some aluminum siding on your house and you won't have to paint it again. The problem is with the way my house was built, if I put up aluminum or vinyl siding, my house will fall down. And people's like, well, why will that happen? It's because the house was meant to breathe and you are not maintaining the house the way it was meant to be built. Just like a masonry house. If you build a house out of cob, okay? That house will last you forever if you touch it up the proper way. It's just we've not either A, taught people how to properly maintain their house, or B, people just don't care enough about the structure that they have because, they hired somebody else. Even if they've had the house built, people say, oh, I'm going to build my own house. No, you aren't. You're going to hire someone to come out and build a house for you, and you're going to look at some blueprints, and you're going to agree with the architect when they say, no, the bathroom has to be over in this wall.
And that's exactly why, and I'm not saying this is at all the case, okay? Just take this with a big pile of salt. But you can kind of see where if he wasn't given the information by some creep on the inside of the British or Vatican government or whatever, that George Orwell, Eric, whatever his name was, wrote in 1948, 1984, And the thing that I think between him and Aldous Huxley writing Brave New World in 1932 or so, that they had between the two of them, I guess they came up with that thing about useless eaters.
Well, they knew what direction we were going.
Yeah, farmers. Well, they knew what. Yeah, I think they knew that, and I think they knew where it was going to be allowed to go, or it was going to end up, or they, where it was like designed to go, or whether, like I said, is it just attrition? It's a combination of all that stuff, and then being people being encouraged to just be, more city based, and so they can be herded and controlled, and people were getting out of the rural lifestyle really slowly, and then everything's just rotting and falling because back, before he wrote that, so let's just say in 1932, let's just say just the United States, divorce was like less than 1%. Now it's like greater than 70%. It's ridiculous. Like, so basically our country's just, the whole world by proxy is just falling apart. Well, because we've let it. But I want to go back to one other thing. As Americans, we've also always had this warped mindset of houses anyways. So a lot of people don't realize the reason you don't see a lot of old, like especially on the East Coast, you don't see a lot of old log cabins, like 1700s and that kind of stuff. Do you guys actually know why we don't see a lot of old log cabins and such like that? The nails were so valuable because they had to be custom made that when you were ready to move, you burnt down your house so that you could access the nails. I remember hearing about that. I couldn't remember. That is totally true.
There was trees everywhere.
You remember going to Monticello? I don't know have you been to Monticello?
Yep, I've been to Monticello. Yes.
And back in the day when they had all these wonderful people that were called slaves. That's 3 jokes actually. Because you went there, you had to get the third one. But basically, come on, Sally. That Mustang. They had their own blacksmith, and blacksmiths back then were like more valuable than gold.
Yes.
Like you just said. But to build what they built there, I mean, he'd traveled the world and got inspired by Palladio and all the other great ones. But he had to tell them what to do, and they had to hire these great carpenters, and the slaves helped out and whatnot. But it was like, what they were able to achieve there. They made, I don't know if they made their own bricks on that site or not.
They did.
They used bricks that were made. Yeah, a lot of the older colonial ones did have, especially the ones that were like for presidents and.
Well, making your own bricks on the East Coast, if you were in Appalachia, it was easy.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, but the other thing is, and we also
they had kilns were more common back then, or.
No, it's because you had the wood. You had the wood to get the fire to the temperature that you wanted.
Right.
And easy amounts of it. Yeah, because they
had enough labor and time and material, and
the sand. So you could dig into the ground and you could make an underground kiln, and you just bury the bricks, you cook them underground, and so easy.
They had the technology, and they just had to fire it for a certain amount of time because you could overcook them and they'd crack and crumble, or you could undercook them and they'd be like some other problem. I forget. It's not brittle. Then the other version is like.
But I mean, a good East Coast brick builder knew how to make it in the sand and knew how to do the kilns like that very well. So. But anyways, a lot of times you didn't do that because you had trees everywhere. And
right.
Why make brick when you have trees?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if you look at a lot of the old photos from all kinds of places, and a lot of them are being put in about what was the one that recently that one guy gave a big shit stink about, made a video a few days ago on it, was Bismarck, North Dakota. I was looking at those pictures and man, there's a lot more trees there now than there were then. Back in 1890, 1873. And I'm like, we didn't just crawl out of eggs and come up onto the land like lizards. I mean, I had a great grandmother that read to me when I was, back in the late 70s or early or even mid 70s, whenever she read to me. I guess it would have been early 70s. And she was born in 1899 and she had parents. We didn't just fall out of the sky to buildings that were already here, built by freaking aliens. We have a history You know, I
Well,
think Mark
so
was saying he's researched it, and to him the mud floods are just, and that whole like idea is just a bunch of like rabbit holes.
well, I think some of it is, but I do think that there probably might have been structures. There might have been structures that people before us, of people before us built, and we modified. I'm okay with that. I'm okay thinking that maybe the natives weren't savages like people want to pretend that they were. That maybe Europeans were here longer. Maybe some of the history. Maybe some of the history that we know, like when we see an old structure, maybe what we're seeing them is remodeling. But instead of it being some aliens or some lie about something, it was just it just part of the story, and we're just our dates are wrong, and I don't have any problem with our dates being wrong. In American history, we changed a calendar once. When we went from the Julian calendar to the we went from the Julian calendar to the Georgian calendar. We change dates on a regular basis now. We have Gregorian. We have daylight savings time where we change hours in a day.
Right.
That sounds crazy.
And all these people that are like saying things about, oh well, yeah, I mean there are some things that have changed, but they're not all Mandela effects. So you got to stop blaming that guy. And these people, it's like they can't get past all these silly rabbit holes, and it's like memories fade, memories change. Sometimes they change things. Like I forget if it was George Washington or Abraham Lincoln, but they used to have like a president's birthday, then they changed it to President's Day.
Well, and the other thing
that's not a Mandela effect.
But the thing is like all of it, like all of it could be. Well, I can't all of it. There could be lots of truth hidden inside the lies. There could be something like a Mandela effect that actually exists, but not everything we see is a Mandela effect. There could be structures that were really, really old. A mud flood could have happened in particular regions. Yeah. That could be possible.
Right. I mean, there's some people that are claiming they're finding some in different areas of different countries and this and that. And I didn't really look that much into it, but it's like I almost don't want to now because at this point, people have gotten so dumb. And what's scary is that it seems to me that the internet is making them think they're smart or that they've done the research and they're just clicking on videos. And a lot of this is being put out by people. And I did watch some of the videos a couple days ago, and I was like, and they're supposed to be one of the most respected people on the subject, and I was just like, holy shit!
But
I mean, this guy, I was like, dude, this guy couldn't hold.
But
it blew my mind how.
But let me add one thing though, is that at least it's self-programming where. Prior to the internet, you had the TV telling everybody what to believe. And can you imagine if we only had TV today?
Yeah. The other people are trying. At least there's more channels or more people participating and trying. Whether they're hitting, whether they're hitting on the truth or whether they're just finding. Maybe they're finding some anomalies, and maybe there's some stuff that doesn't make any sense, or that wasn't researched properly, or dated properly, or that. Someone wrote it because they wanted to write the history book the way they made some mistakes. Like you said, people make mistakes.
And
if someone made a mistake before them and they're based on a previous book, they're citing it. Well, the first book would have to be right, and if they could just compound an error.
It's just a compound error.
You'll notice a lot of these guys that talk about it, and I'm not saying any of the ones particular.
Yeah.
More of the ones in our country, you'll hear them say whatever they're saying about it. And you're hearing a lot of mispronunciations and you're seeing a lot of misspellings, you start to realize that, and they don't have your learning disability, doc. They claim, and a lot of them have very prestigious degrees and very good rankings within those. And I'm not going to say any names because they have. I'm sure that most of them have really good hearts and souls, but they're just really barking up the wrong tree. And in a lot of cases, they're barking up the right tree. They do have a lot of good points that they're right on a lot of subjects. But when I hear some of the stuff, I'm just like,
well, like here's a great
go on that subject.
Here's a great example. I have rough ideas of roughly when my house was built, and I understand how long paperwork takes here in 2021. I know how long that if I send a piece of paperwork down to the county, how long it takes it for it to be recorded. I could totally understand in the 1800s if somebody sent a piece of paperwork down, it could literally take a year or two for it to be recorded into a log. And so a date could be off by, let's say 2 years. And then let's say the date's off by 2 years, and when somebody recorded the date down, they were dyslexic. So instead of saying, it was built in 1864, they wrote down it was built in 1846. And then
and the other thing too is that they say back in 1890 that we were like only, I forget what it was, but they were saying, it's like back in the late 1800s that 70 or 80% of the entire world, and especially the United States, was literate. I have some relatives that lived through the Great Depression, and I will tell you, horse shit could people read in the 1930s. There were a lot of people that couldn't read in the 1930s.
I'm actually going to say no. They probably were literate because the only thing they needed to read was the Bible, and they probably read the scriptures that they knew, and that's it. So they didn't need to read anything else. Why would you need to read anything else?
There might have been some that were taught by parents that were like, and maybe the 1930s was the worst situation. Maybe there was many years where stuff got worse because they say now they compared like average IQs in like the early 1900s to like now, and they said sometime in the last like 10 or 20 years that the IQs have actually dropped like 20 points on average. And I'm like, well, big surprise. I mean, look around. Have you looked around?
Well, no, I mean, that's the thing.
Really?
Is I think in the past we had more people were literate, but that was because they didn't have to read as much. So they knew less words, but they knew those words very well.
Basically it came. So basically, So I guess what I'm looking at is a pure definition of literacy versus learned intelligence and ability to actually, so that not everybody, obviously, I guess what I look at it is just because you can read a book doesn't mean you could write a one-page paper, because a lot of people could like read a little tiny bit, or they could talk, but they can't. It's like with these different languages, I have friends that can do that. Like they can talk Russian or they can speak Spanish, but they can't write it.
Mm-hmm.
Or other languages, whatever. But like,
they're not proficient. They're literate, but they're not proficient.
Levels of proficiency, and I could like write a book in English, but I'd have to have the intelligence to do so, or not necessarily a great book or anything like that. But it would, most people don't have that level of, So there's people that were authors that they could write like an article or write a news article or something like that.
So anyway, one of the things about the old world is. So the reason why you see so many things made out of bricks and stones and such like that is because they were using trees for other things. And so like because you were using trees for ships, because we didn't have steel, so you went to ships, and then your ship sunk, so you need to go build some more trees. You're also using trees for your fuel. We were using trees for everything that we possibly could think about using a tree for. And the last thing you wanted to do was use that tree for a structure, because the idea was we were building in the old world, you were building structure so that your family would always have a structure to live in. We don't have that mindset today. No one builds a house thinking that their grandchildren are going to live in that house. I can't say no one. Very few people do. We were tricked. We were tricked many, many years ago to stop thinking in generational thought. Like, I mean, think about it. Most Americans can't live with their parents or even with their adult children. Like, you go back to our ancestors, you go back to the old world, and everybody lived with your ancestors. Your ancestors lived in your same town. If they didn't live in the same house, if you didn't live in the same house as your aunt and uncle, they lived probably right next door. Or maybe in a house that was connected to your house, built of stone, because you guys built, you shared a wall and you built another addition onto that wall. We just don't have that anymore because we've decided that we needed to separate. And then when you came to America, America was so big and there were so many trees and so much stuff everywhere. The abundance was spectacular. And because the abundance was so spectacular, people got lazy. And when people get lazy, we don't have skills. You know, like my first structures that I build are pretty shitty. Like, I'm not really that good at building stuff, but I have some grand plans, and as I get better at building stuff, I'm starting to make things look a little nicer and have things do better.
These are like the spikes coming out.
So,
You remember my fern thing, all right? We can play ferns with this. And we can start
Demetrius, right?
growing little ones out of here, you see.
oh yeah.
He says everything in pop culture says move away from your parents,
Well,
except
it's
if
not
you
even
really hold the tradition of the Lebanese. I think Lebanese people
well,
will live
it's
with their
not even
parents until
pop
they're married.
culture. It's like I tell people that my parents
just general, yeah.
I tell people that my parents moved in here and my parents live in here too, and I have some people like like it drives me crazy. I can't believe you still live with your parents. It's like, and we even mock right now. We're even mocking kids because they still live with their parents. Because they're in financial hardship. They can't find a job because they made a really bad decision of what they're going to go to college for. So they have to live at home. But instead of like, oh, what a smart move, they're trying to be financially independent. They're trying to, not go deeper in debt by living with their parents and that kind of stuff. Instead, we just mock them. Oh, he's just a basement dweller in his parents' basement. Well, isn't it better that he's a basement dweller in his parents' basement than living on his own in some shitty apartment someplace else? He's probably doing something at least mildly beneficial to that family. But instead, society just mocks people for whatever reason, and then we shove old people in retirement homes. We shove little kids into preschools. Like, we don't let people don't spend time in their home anymore. But they tell you have to have a big, beautiful home every 10 years. But you spend no time in it.
Yeah.
You spend more time in your car. Most people spend more time in their car than they do their home. Like, not including sleeping, because when you're sleeping, you're not enjoying. You don't care. Like, your body doesn't give a shit where it's sleeping at.
Well,
as long as it's a comfy bed.
On how many, it depends on how many back surgeries you've had, but yeah, generally you want it to have, you want it to be warm enough. You freeze your ass off in your car if you're sleeping outside.
No, I mean,
cold,
if you have a comfy, you have a comfy bed,
nice vehicle.
Yeah, if you have a comfy bed, and your comfy bed was in a tent that could keep you warm, you wouldn't care. Your body wouldn't care when you're sleeping. If you're sleeping in a comfy bed, but you're nice and warm in a tent.
Yeah, there's Yeah, as you get older, there's like a humidification factor, which enters a little bit more into, and then if you have allergies or something. Hey, I hate to have to sign off, but I got to hit the sack.
Right. It's good talking with you.
It's been great talking with you, Doc.
Thanks,
much love, brother, and all my condolences and
thanks.
Big hugs and all that good stuff. And I'll be here for you anytime. I'll try to be on a little bit more later this week or next week.
Sounds good.
Have the show again next week.
I will. We'll see you next week.
Take it easy and have a good night. And good night, everyone else. Much love, everyone else. Good night.
That was Yam, everyone. Good guy. Passing through. A regular on the show. So if anybody else would like to jump in, it's !Discord. I don't really know. We kind of jumped around talking about a bunch of stuff. So, because we always do. But if anybody else would like to jump in, mostly we're kind of talking about how to better yourself, how to do cool things with yourself and make the best version of you that you possibly can. And then we're just talking about how we've been tricked and fooled and how we can counteract that. So, and talking about lots of great, cool stuff out there in the world. So,
powerfully influenced by the metaphors that he uses, and the metaphors for knowing and for consciousness, mirrors, cameras, etc., can be extraordinarily introducing unnecessarily complicated.
So probably won't be, let's see, we've been going for about 3 hours now, so probably go on for just a little bit longer. We'll chat some more, we'll talk about some other cool things, and then I'll probably head off to bed. Got some interesting chores to do tomorrow. I'm still trying to get. I'm working on getting the Minecraft server up and running. So, and then if I get the Minecraft server up and running, we'll be adding some more some more different types of gaming services and such to that, so all of us can play. We can get together, have stuff like that for those that just want to pop in and chat and have someone to chat with, but maybe, you know, also do some stuff. One of the things that I realize that gaming does is gaming's a great way to build strong community, and so people are welcome to do that. Again, you can get all that information on Discord for things of that sort. Plus, I need to. I'm adding a brand new camera onto the farm. So as soon as that comes in, but with that camera requires some work and some redeveloping stuff. So I'm doing that in because that'll be fun. I'll also be adding in. We're going to be doing some building, so you guys will get to see me try to build some buildings. Trying is the best option. So I'm not the best carpenter out there in the world, but I like to try. I like to try to do it right. I like to do that. So we'll be doing that. And typical regular cleaning and talking about all the other stuff. We'll talk a little bit about crypto in the future. Right now, crypto's been kind of boring. I haven't really focused on that too much. You know, doing a little bit of day trading since, you know, it's pretty volatile. Anytime it's volatile, I like it. But just kind of been that. And yeah, kind of feel like I'm rambling now. So I'll give it a few minutes. If anybody has anything particular that you'd like to talk about, I will be more than happy to carry on the conversation. If not, I'll probably head off. I'm working on some future seminars, some future classes. Really, right now, really waiting for my bees to come so we can really be talking about bees. Super excited about raising bees again and having bees and porch bees and all the other kind of stuff. That should be really, really fun. And yeah, slowing down. Partly slowing down because it's getting close to sleepy time. Get my beauty sleep in. Like I said, one of the good things about health is to make sure you have a good night's sleep. So one of the tricks that helps me fall asleep is I listen to audiobooks on a regular basis, and you can listen to a lot of free audiobooks on the library app. So I listen to a lot of free audiobooks with the library app because, well, I'm thrifty, and so I'm always trying to find interesting new snazzy ways to save money. So I can use that to add back into my farm and to grow cool things so I can have more control over my individual life, because I like my life to be my own. So, okay, well, I was enough rambling. I gave everybody a few minutes. So, anyways, friends, thanks everybody for joining tonight. This is Doc, Justin, whatever you guys like to call me. I try to do a show every day, so look forward to seeing you guys swinging around. If anybody else would like me to jump on their show anytime in the future, let me know. I'm more than happy to come in and chat with you about things. Other than that, I hope everyone has a wonderful evening, and until tomorrow, I will see you guys all a little later. I do have, I want to end this with one of my new absolute favorite quotes of all times. So let me find it. I'm going to spin around this into the scene, and we will listen to the quote as we send off. Have yourself a wonderful night.
The poorest way to face life is to face it with a sneer. There are many men who feel a kind of twisted pride and cynicism. There are many who confine themselves to criticism of the way others do what they themselves dare not even attempt. There is no more unhealthy being, no man less worthy of respect than he who either really holds or feigns to hold an attitude of sneering disbelief toward all that is great and lofty, whether in achievement or in that noble effort which, even if it fails, comes to second achievement. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who, at the best, knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who, at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat.